Starting thing. It's not gonna post to you. All right, and it says that Streamlabs is live, and it looks like we are live. So, hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, That Creepy Reading, and today I'm joined by both Steve McRae and Cheshire
Cheshire's
Goblin
fine. Cheshire's fine.
Queen.
It used to be
Yeah,
Cheshire Vic, the artist formerly known as Cheshire Vic.
formerly
Now it's just
known.
Cheshire.
And
It's too long.
for people who don't understand what's like going on or necessarily like thumbnail, title and all that jazz, basically I'm working on worst YouTubers, and I was gonna have to interview Steve anyway because I wanted to cover his story, but I figured it would be fun to live stream it. So yeah, this is what it's like to work on worst YouTubers. Let me make sure I can get this link out to a few more people. Steve and Cheshire, if you want to introduce yourselves and say hi to chat, feel free.
Hi, chat. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it, creepy man. My name's Steve McRae. I've been a YouTuber for about 8 years. I'm the owner of the Great Debate Community. I have a couple channels called the Great Debate Community. My own channel, Steve McRae, and of course the Non Sequitur Show, which we're going to be discussing, and my co-host Cheshire Vic, who I do a show with called Judgment Call. And they used to be Caffeine Corner. And then if we ever do get the Non Sequitur Show back, my co-host for that. Hi, Chesh.
Hello, I'm Chesh. I do art, and I am basically Steve's babysitter. Uh, that's not true. We work together and we do the call-in show. So if you ever feel like calling in to talk to us about whatever's going on, feel free to call us. That's on Mondays. But we did do Caffeine Corner, which was about sort of critical thinking and sort of topics of the day and how to navigate social situations and how to recognize narcissism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, just to try and help people make their daily lives a little bit easier. And I'm looking forward to getting Non Sequitur back. And we finally got a court date for that, which is so I'm freaking out.
Spoilers.
All right, so let's start off at the beginning here. What is Non Sequitur Show? How did it start? Tell us like about, I guess, what we could call the good times. How did your channel start? How do you meet Kyle? What was lost essentially?
Way back when in 2017, Kyle Curtis had approached me after I had done numerous streams on my own channel and the Great Debate Community on debates and discussions. And we would have discussions with PhDs, we would have discussions on science and philosophy and theology and any subject that people really kind of wanted to bring to the table. He was doing a little story of his own on that. And he liked the way that I did interviews. He liked the way that we had discussions. And he had approached me about starting a podcast. And I was like, oh, okay, you know what? This actually sounds like a pretty good idea. And so we collaborated on a podcast. And I had convinced him, let's move the podcast to YouTube because YouTube was more my platform. And I knew quite a bit of people on YouTube. He eventually agreed to that, and we moved it to YouTube, and within about a year and a half we became one of the more popular shows on YouTube. We were doing exceptionally well, making a fair amount of money. We had some notoriety, some popularity. We would have flat earthers come in, so we would have discussions with flat earthers, trying to explain to them why they were wrong. And during the highlight of the high point of the channel, Kyle decided to take over the channel. He decided to kick me and the producer of the show, Bullinator, who unfortunately is no longer with us, off of the channel. He took all the money from the Patreon. He took all the money from Teespring. He took all the money from the show, from AdSense, and then tried to continue the show without us, which did not fare very well. The show lost thousands of subscribers. And we've been in litigation ever since. We've been in litigation now for about 2 years in order to get the channel and the assets back, as well as recoup some of the money that he had taken.
So one of the things that I've been following this for a while now, Steve, and I mean, of course you know that because I'm the type of person who would just randomly reach out to you while I'm working at a gas station to figure out all the shenanigans. Either way,
I love those times too. You were so chill working at a gas station, just, calling me up to, kind of find out what was going on. And I loved that actually.
that was absolutely fun. But out of curiosity, how did you and Kyle like come up with the idea for the podcast, or like what how did it like, how did you guys meet and get started? Like, what made you decide that you want to do this together?
Well, because I had been doing these things for quite some time. People that know my channel, I had, discussions with people like Kent Hovind, was a younger creationist, and I would have people like King Crocoduck come on and, explain to him why, his science was incorrect. I'd have Aaron Ra on, and other, a little more prominent YouTubers at the time. And again, he really liked the idea of having a show where people could come on and have opinions are sacred. That was our motto. And the podcast was doing exceptionally well. I think we had broken 1 million downloads, if I'm not mistaken. We were on iTunes, FM radio, Spotify, Spreaker, iTunes. I mean, we were all over the place on the podcast, which I would spend, several hours a night cutting, putting the bumper music on and changing the audio bit rate and all those other things I had to do to actually produce the podcast. And, we would stream it to the YouTube channel, and eventually it became more of the YouTube channel than the podcast. Podcast was more of a secondary thing, but we'd have these amazing guests come on, and this was the whole basis for the thing that I had on my channel, right? Because I wanted to have great discussions. And we just kind of migrated that over to the Non Sequitur Show on the Non Sequitur Show channel, and it just took off. I mean, people liked that idea of having people come on and having discussions that they probably wouldn't normally have. I mean, matter of fact, we started back in the time where nobody really knew much about the sovereign citizens, right? Nobody really knew much about the flat earth community. Nobody really knew much about these fringe movements, but we were enthralled by them, right? Because obviously I am a scientific kind of person. I can't stand people that are disingenuous in their science. But I happen to know a lot of the younger creationist scientists. I was mentioned in the Journal of Creation. I've been mentioned in a paper or two. And the reason being is I actually talk to them, right? I mean, instead of just condemning them, I actually want to have conversations with them and have them contact actual experts that will explain to people why these things are incorrect. And we just kind of move that over to the Non Sequitur Show. That's why I think people thought it was popular.
So what you basically did was just kind of interview people who had fringe opinions and were hosted live debates about philosophy, science, all that jazz.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we would have pretty well-known, recognizable names come in. We had Dr. Loris Krauss on, Dr. Mary Schweitzer, Dr. Donald Prothero. Recently
there was like a happy mix of things that were like high level education to mid level education, and then every so often like just an absolute dumpster fire just tossed right into the middle of it.
Yeah, those are popular too, right? The absolute dumpster fire, where we have somebody come on with such a fringe belief where all you're going to do is just, have your mouth slackjaw and disbelief that somebody actually would do things like drink their own urine and stuff. But
right.
Yeah, I mean, where do you go with something like that, right?
Like, do you think drinking urine is acceptable? And if so, do you have like any arguments? And he's like, "Yeah, I got a water bottle right here, buddy.
Freshly drawn from the tap. Okay.
Gotta drain the lizard."
I'll stick with coffee.
I don't think that's.
I kind of am.
I don't think that's very healthy for you. Like, God,
probably not. Yeah, I would imagine no.
So, basically, for those who are just tuning in, because we have significantly more viewers than we did just even a few seconds ago, what happened was Steve McRae used to run this podcast called the Non Sequitur Show. And the Non Sequitur Show was like a YouTube skeptic community channel that was centered around the idea of like debating people who had differing opinions and like basically hosting these live debate style formats. Steve is actually really fucking good at this. He did a live debate with King Crocoduck and Kent Hovind, and the thing wasn't necessarily to talk about Christianity as much as it was to talk about the scientific belief of young Earth creationism, which is stupid.
Yeah, that's pretty
And
much
like,
nails it.
like he, like King Crocoduck would talk about like things like how light travels and stuff like that, and the reasons why we know how old the planet is, and he tried to explain it to Kent Hovind, which we all know is kind of a fucktard.
And good luck trying to explain anything to Kent Hovind, and then on top of it, then also
Entertaining
getting him
as
to
hell.
accept that thing. Oh, absolutely! It's like if you've ever seen somebody try and teach a child how to draw, like paint Picasso on a wall with crayons.
Oh, by the way, guys, if you guys are getting mad at me, or if there's any like animosity there because I called Kent Hovind a fucktard, just remember that his wife is the reason why measles came back in Detroit.
Which one? Because he just
Mary
recently
Toko.
divorced. He just recently divorced number 3 and is currently in the market for number 4. So if anybody's interested in becoming Mrs. Hovind number 4, slots open.
Raise your hand.
But yeah, if you guys saw the scams that went way too far video, the hope for autism, all you can the anti-vax kit that costs $400, that's Mary Toko. That was also Kent Hovind. So the anti-vax scam, that's Kent Hovind. So, as someone who's autistic, Kent Hovind's a fucktard.
Before we go too much further, because your live chat's commenting about it, I've got to say, I love your artist, Frida. This thumbnail, brilliant, beyond brilliant, beyond brilliant. It is perfecto. I love this. I love this thumbnail.
It's so good.
It's so good. It's ridiculous.
It's too good.
It shouldn't be this good.
If you guys are at all interested in commissioning art or getting artwork for your own YouTube channel or whatever endeavor that may be, feel free to go into the link in the description. Frida does commission work, and she's been a fan and friend of the channel for a while. I'm happy to
I think I might ask her to collab on some art, because that might be fun.
It's so good.
Either way, I also kind of find it funny too that we gained like 20 viewers while I was calling Kent Hovind a fucktard, because I mean, like, he is. But I have absolutely no respect for the guy. But Steve McRae here debated him and used his platform to try to educate people on why his views are wrong. It's basically the same thing that I do, teaching people about how these beliefs work, how these scams are perpetuated, and doing so while putting the con artist on the spot. It's a brilliant, and that transferred over to this new show called the Non Sequitur Show, which he hosted with his co-host. I believe it's Kyle something.
Kyle Curtis.
Kyle Fucktard, got it. And Kyle Curtis, and there's a producer that I think is not with us anymore.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bullionator.
Bullionator, who produced a lot of different channels. He had been producing things for Schrodinger's Cat channel and a few other channels. And unfortunately, last year he passed away from natural causes. It was quite devastating to the community as a whole, because he was beloved by everybody. We're still processing, to say to some degree. But the worst part is he's never going to see the resolution of all this, because it's been 2 years since this transpired, and I have to recognize that we're doing a lot of it for Bullinator at this point, because he was such a great guy. It sucks.
It definitely sucks to lose someone, and I kind of feel bad that I can't have the same emotional connection, because I never met the guy. Oh, the next YT video, Mr. Peoplebro, will probably be worst YouTubers or scam or dark and experimental animated bands. I'm not sure which is coming out yet. It just depends on which one has better and faster research. And speaking of research, this is what we're doing now. So, after the Non Sequitur Show gets hijacked, after the Non Sequitur Show gets hijacked, I remember that you made a video titled "The Death of the Non Sequitur Show," and I remember seeing that because I used to watch. I didn't really watch the Non Sequitur, but I saw it in my recommendations a lot. So seeing this title of this channel that I've heard a lot about, hosted by a guy that I followed and enjoyed quite a bit of his work, I wanted to look into it. So I watched that thing, and that, it kind of blew my mind, which we actually have the Deaf and the Non Sequitur show linked in the description for anyone who's interested. But from what and correct me if I'm wrong here, from what I understand, it seems like Kyle basically locked you out of the channel by like either changing the password or the permissions or something like that, and just wasn't going to have you on anymore.
You're not wrong. And yeah, so I highly recommend, I ask people, if you're going to ever watch one thing on my channel, watch the Death of the Non Sequitur show. The link is in the video description. And if you subscribe, if you subscribe, that's great too. I could use some subs nowadays. But I really want that video watched, because it is in the real time where you watch somebody destroy their YouTube career. I mean, you can actually hear that moment. You can hear it, you can feel it, you can sense it. The very moment when you say, this is the point of time where somebody has destroyed their entire YouTube career, because Kai was popular. Kai was more popular than I was a lot of time, in a lot of cases, with a lot of different communities. And I think because I was more the controversial one, because I didn't kiss ass. I'm not the kind of person to suck up to people. I don't suck up to YouTubers. I don't suck up to anybody. What I do is I want the facts. I want the evidence. I want the logic. I want the reason. I want the story. And Kai was more about the entertainment value. And I think, he started doing some things that I wasn't very comfortable with. I, have a very high sense of ethics, because I do a blog on epistemology. I explain people's, how people think, how they believe, how they formulate their beliefs, and how they do their ethics system, whether it be virtue ethics or deontological. And I sensed a few problems. I sensed there was a problem with some of the finances as well, and I kept asking for the books that he never would show me. And I'm like, look, I need to know where this money's going. We were making about $4,000 to $5,000 a month on average. And that's a sizable amount for a partnership on YouTube that has only been around for about a year and a half. And he couldn't account for any of the money. He kept on saying he had a CPA, his tax guy, and that never came to fruition of who that person was. And finally, what happened was myself, a friend of mine named Red's Rhetoric, who has a channel filming rockets, very popular channel, and Bullinator, who was the producer at the time, had during a pre-show, which was prior to going on air, we would occasionally record things and do that for Patreon. He came on, and we confronted him. What is going on here? Because he had slowly been trying to schedule me off the show. I started the YouTube channel. I gave him the YouTube channel for, quote, SEO reasons, was his reasoning for why he wanted ownership of it.
Anybody who doesn't know what SEO, by the way, is that search engine optimization.
So, like,
yeah, and I did at the time.
I don't think that's such a stupid reason to give someone a channel too. Like, honestly,
I was naive at the time. I'm straight up.
I don't mean to. I'm not trying to make fun of you. I'm not victim blaming. I'm more or less saying.
I get it.
Fun of him.
SEO is literally just like writing a description and putting in tags. Like, it's not.
I know this now. Thank you. Where were you 2 years ago?
You got conned, dude.
4 years ago, I guess, right?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, no,
Straight up.
I get it, right? Look, I'm like most people. I learn as I go, right? Even though I had been around YouTube, I didn't know anything about SEO or anything like that. I trusted the guy, okay? And I fully will admit, this was, me. This is my onus. I trust somebody incorrectly. But, looking back in hindsight, as I learned about SEO, and as like things were, not adding up, right? And so when we confronted him on this, he basically had admitted that, yes, we had a 50-50 partnership. Yes, it was in perpetuity for any kind of residuals. Everything that I've been saying was absolutely true from the very beginning. And he legit said, I'm changing the agreement. And I'm like, wait, whoa. Hey, look, you cannot change a partnership agreement, right? I mean, we have an agreement. You can't unilaterally
like, unless if both people like agree to change it, right?
Right. Yeah, you could bilaterally do it, or but he unilaterally tried to make these decisions.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so awful. So he gets access to the channel because SEO reasons, and then he's just like, I am the owner now.
Mhm.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and then and so we,
If you
you know,
watch the Death of the Non Sequitur show, if you've ever seen somebody when they're or heard about people who are one way in front of a camera and completely different in the way they treat people
oh
behind the
yes,
camera, and then on top of that, the straight up arrogance where he's like, "No, I am Non Sequitur. What do you do? I do music and graphics."
Even
Arrogance.
worse than that, he said that I had confronted him. I was like, look, what about the Teespring stuff? He's like, well, I'm taking 100% of that because they were my designs. I'm like, no, wait a minute. First of all, I brought Teespring to him. I had
You have my
yeah,
face on a
Teespring.
shirt.
Yeah, he put, I mean, it was us. It was a team thing. And so no, I said, you have my face on a mug.
Oh,
Now-
the mug.
Yeah.
The best is that there is a pair of socks, and one of them has you, and one of them has him.
Yeah, and so he literally is telling us, no, I'm taking 100% of the Teespring, and then he was admitting that he was stealing everything. He was stealing the money. Now, the number that came up with like 60,000, the last number that I saw as far as the number just from the YouTube channel, anybody who has a YouTube channel, knows you can go to an analytics and it'll give you an estimate. And that's all it is. But that estimate was around $50,000 at that time. That wasn't including money from Patreon, from Streamlabs, from Teespring, which was another huge amount. Matter of fact, the 60,000 is way underestimated, I think. Especially now it's been 2 years later. That was still
When
getting
you're in
revenue.
court, it's better to underestimate than it is to overestimate. And the reason why,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna explain this for the audience because I love legal shit. So here's the thing: your judge, he's the guy who decides your fate, right? Trying to sift through even more like financial information sucks, and he has to determine exactly how much you are owed in any situation. So as a result, if you keep coming at him like, oh no, I'm actually owed this much money, or oh, I'm actually owed this much money, or actually I'm this is how much I have to do, there has to be like hearings, and he has to sift through all that, and then he has to decide if it should be returned within malice or within like normal reparative monetary gain. If monetary gain isn't enough, what else needs to be done? And basically, when you're dealing with something where you're actually trying to get a judgment out of someone, it's better to err on the lower end of the spectrum because you're more likely to get a judge to agree to that than you
You're
are.
absolutely right.
And it's also
You're
a lot
absolutely right.
easier to prove, too.
Yeah.
That like
I've
you
actually
know,
I've been going through the lawsuit, kind of just covering the actual legal documents. And early on, the partial judgment, the reason it was partial was because the judge and Steve didn't know how much to ask for because they don't have any of the financial records. Kyle has all of those. So what the judge had ended up saying was that Kyle needs to turn over all of the financial information to Steve, and then Steve has a month to get together how much he thinks he's owed and all of that information so that it only gets presented to the judge once.
Right. Now, Kyle failed to do that.
Whoa, spectacularly.
In order to bring a lawsuit, and people have been asking, this is a North Carolina business court. You can go look it up. I'm sure if you want to put the case number in and all that afterwards, you can. Or if Cheshire wants to put in the live chat, you can add to the video description if you want to go look at these documents yourself. I recommend you do. But in order to bring a case in front of a Superior Court judge, business court, you have to be $25,000 or higher. That's all we had to meet, which in this case is clearly
easily beatable.
Yeah. So that's all we had to do was come up with a number that was higher than 25. So we didn't ask for anything, but we knew that was over 25,000. Now, as Cheshire astutely pointed out,
But
we have
let's take a few steps back. So
Sure.
you'll lose the channel. He's refusing to be on with you. We're gonna get to the court stuff because he did go to court, and that's a whole story that we are going to get into. But before we get ahead of ourselves, I actually kind of want to go into some of the more nitty gritty details that led to the court battle. So I apologize for me getting a little too excited and bouncing around.
Oh no, I like the
bit.
excitement. Ask away.
But so you lose the channel. He's basically saying fuck you and all this like money I agreed to share with you. You're not getting any of it now. Like not even like I'm going to pay you for what you've done and then also not have you on anymore. More like
So
you're
there's
just not
actually-
here and you're not getting a cent out of me, basically.
Yeah, there were two kind of contradictory things that he said during the Death of the Non Sequitur Show episode when the final sort of straw was drawn, and it was that he owed Steve money. It was a 50-50 partnership that how do you want the money, quote unquote, you'll get your money. And then so sue me. So people after the fact that were like all of Kyle's buddies that there was definitely no collusion going on started making accusations about Steve, but also saying that Steve would 100% get paid, which, what year is it now? What are we in? This is 2019 we're talking about.
Yeah, so he, because he had said, I will, and this, he said it for quite some time. I will make sure Steve gets every penny he's owed. I'm like, wait a minute. First of all, we all need to see the books, and second of all, it's my show, right? I'm 50-50 on this, right? It's not like
you were like owed like 50% perpetuity.
Yeah, well, I
that's
was also on my
essentially
show.
awesome.
I mean, you can't kick somebody off your own show. I mean,
Steve-
we
Steve is crazy because during that Death of the Non Sequitur show, they were trying to hash it out. Steve was trying to reach some kind of resolution with Kyle, and he offered Kyle 50% of the show's earnings in perpetuity, even though Kyle would no longer be a part of the show.
Now there was going to be some caveats to that, but those needed to be had been worked,
Sure.
to be worked out. But Kyle wasn't even interested in that. He wanted everything.
I don't understand
Kyle's
why
all about-
Kyle wouldn't just if he thinks that his editing. That's another thing too. One of the just so I can go into this because I did watch some of Kyle's stuff, and from what I understand, it appears that the reason why he felt entitled to the show is because he was the primary editor, from what I understand, and graphics artist.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the
I'm not
thing,
saying
though.
that
This
gives him any credibility. I'm just saying that's what he seemed to say during his own live streams, and the reason why he felt entitled to this is because he's like, well, I'm putting in more work, therefore I deserve more money, and I don't want to work with Steve anymore. So
Well,
Which was
near the
completely
end, he was starting
nonsensical.
to use my artwork.
Yeah.
in
Well,
the
here's
thumbnails.
the
I mean,
reason
don't
we
get me
got
wrong.
together to
I've
begin
seen
with-
him. I've seen his last video he posted, which I will be completely upfront and honest. It looks like dog shit. Like
Yeah,
the
well,
one that he
everything-
did with Jimmy.
Oh yeah. And put that on pin on that because I want to get back to that if you don't mind.
Oh yeah.
I wanna
That's
talk about that. I'm
exactly
gonna
what
talk
I'm
about
leading.
that.
That's exactly
Good,
what
good.
I'm leading up to.
I'm gonna go there. I am gonna go there, but give me 1 second.
Foreshadowing.
Yes, the foreshadow. So we got when we got together, it was his skill set for the graphics, right? And it was my skill set to have these types of communications and discussions with the people because I had already had a lot of connections. I had already interviewed a lot of people. And so he didn't have the ability to talk on the level that I did with certain guests, I guess you can say. Not to toot my own horn, but I have a little bit of background in science. I know a little philosophy. But I'm able to talk to these experts and communicate what they say to lay speak for the audience, right? And I think that's what people enjoy. They hear something, they go, "What does that mean?" We're able to discuss it and kind of tell the lay audience, this is what the person's saying. Well, Kyle didn't have any of that, right? So he wasn't the great communicator at that point, but he was all about the imagery, right? Which again is part of branding, and I'm not going to detract that from him. I'm not going to take that away from him. However, it's not 95% of the show. Matter of fact, if you watch the Non Sequitur show, all he kind of did was throw in kind of a funny comment every now and then, right? Most of the major stuff was me having dialogues with people. I mean, I got a chance to talk to Lawrence Krauss about the no boundary proposal, by Stephen Hawking, and so that kind of level stuff he just wasn't able to do. But he thought because he did the graphics that he was 95% of the show, that everybody watched the show because of him. Well, he found out how incredibly wrong he was because when he tried to kick me off, and by the way, we did tell him, this is not a route you want to go. You do not have a proper perspective what's going on here because you have a certain amount of people telling you, hey, look, man, you're great. You need to get rid of Steve. And those were 5 people as opposed to 8,000 people that were telling him not to, kind of thing. And so when he did, thousands of people unsubscribed from the channel. They started coming to my channel. And the channel just died. I mean, nobody watched this stuff because I was like, look, you're screwing over a partner. This doesn't go well on YouTube. And I even told him, look, I'm going to make this video public. you know, and I don't want to do this because once this happens, it's over. You know, I knew at this point the everything we had built, he has been destroying, right? And it was the last thing I wanted to do because I didn't want to see all the effort we had both put into the show. I mean, I was the one that got the guests. I was the one that would try to schedule them and then have them finalized by Kyle, by him saying exactly when. But I was the one doing all the communication, another one searching for the topics, and mostly all that stuff, right? And producing and doing the podcast, which again took about 2 hours a night. You do a podcast. You know, there's a lot of effort that goes in this kind of stuff.
Definitely.
And
yeah,
I'm not
even, I don't even care about the effort though. The fact is that you started the channel. If he thinks that he can do better without you, he should have started his own channel because
he tried. And it was funny. He tried that. He was
hard.
going to.
It's genuine. It's genuinely not hard to like get it. Like if you make bomb ass content and you know how like to really like use some search terms and using the algorithm, you can pretty much guarantee yourself some subscribers.
Absolutely.
And I don't understand why he wouldn't do that.
He would have had a boost, a leg up from Non Sequitur also. He did end up kind of trying to do that with a show called Tastecraft. And last year in about October was the 1-year anniversary of the show that never ended up having any content because the Non Sequitur show stuff blew up. And I baited Kyle into deleting the entire channel because I told everybody I was going to go look through the comments.
He did delete that channel. I did look.
He deleted it as soon as I said that.
But he tried to do a show called Ad Homies with a guy named Jimmy Snow. He's known as YouTuber Mr. Atheist. Not doxing. He's well known for his name. But he has a very large channel. And he was trying to do a separate show with Jimmy. And during this time, I had reached out to Jimmy and said, "Look, dude, we had a cease and desist, right? We had a cease and desist. Do not stream to the channel because it's in litigation or going to be pending in litigation." And Jimmy had been on our channel. He knew our partnership. He was well aware of how it was structured. He was one of the first people that we had on.
Before we, I hate to interrupt you here because the thing is that a lot of my audience doesn't know who Jimmy is. So just so that we are clear, Jimmy, I forget, also known as the YouTuber Mr. Atheist,
yes,
is a person with 400,000 subscribers. This isn't like a individual who like shouldn't know better. This isn't like some like scientist or someone that they were debating or a crazy person on Twitter. This is a like honest to God, genuine influencer bigger than me. Like I got 100K subs, but this guy got 400K and a audience that is far more interested in, you know, like actually hearing him out and being more active. That's only because I'm lazy.
To be fair, he wasn't that big back then. We gave him the Non Sequitur show really kind of put him on the map. He wasn't that big before. I'm going to say it. We helped launch him.
The point being,
in the stratosphere.
He's not like a nobody, you know, and I
he's
don't
not.
mean to say that in like a mean way. I mean, like, this is someone who is an influencer who probably has taken sponsorships, who understands that when you're a YouTuber, your voice has influence. So when he endorses someone, like, he actually influences public perception, which is a part of what I'm doing right now. I'm kind of trying to course correct. You know, of course, I can't do it as well, but...
here's the thing, though. Let me be quick. I had written a letter. It's on my blog, www.greatdebatecommunity.com. And I had written an open letter to Mr. Atheist, who knew better. He knew that he couldn't stream to my channel, but him and Kyle continued to stream to the Non Sequitur show. And I told him, look, you are in violation of this, and you are, supporting somebody who stole $60,000 from the fans. You're supporting somebody who broke a partnership, breach of fiduciary duty, breach of contract. By the way, these are all things in evidence that he's already been found liable for. He has been found liable for fraud.
Don't worry, we'll get to that part. We'll get to the.
So I gave Jimmy an out. I gave Mr. Atheist an out. I was like, look, dude, This is all going to blow up in your face eventually. And unfortunately, he didn't have the pushback it should have, because he blocked anybody that talked about it. He blocked any of his subscribers, his patrons, anybody who mentioned this to him. He just excised.
He hid comments that had any, like, so I was actually talking to him on Twitter, and I was like, dude, you know that, like, you're having a call-in show with Kyle on the Non Sequitur show, and you're saying that you're going to block anybody who asks about Kyle's stuff when you haven't been clear about what your stance is on Kyle outside of supporting him. People are going to ask you, and they're going to be right to do so. If you don't want to ask them, fine, whatever. Here's a link, and I made a spreadsheet that had all of the, like, the death of the Non Sequitur, the hangouts, a couple of the hangouts that happened afterwards. I put all of them in a playlist, and I linked the playlist to him on his Twitter thread, and he hit it.
Yeah. And so in this open letter that I had to him, I said, look, all you have to do is ask him for the books. You say that he has the money. And matter of fact, Mr. Atheist told me you will get your money. He had told me, this isn't writing. He put it on Twitter. Steve, you'll get your money.
Pacify you. He tried to pacify
I mean,
you.
Steve
and
might
like,
get
okay.
his money after he sued him.
Doesn't
in
count.
10 years.
It doesn't count. It doesn't count, right?
Even
Not
if
the
Steve
same.
got the money, and even if Steve got the money, that's still not enough, because he still owed at least 50% of the show at that point, at minimum.
Right.
So I asked him. I said, "Look, if you can get the books out of him, I'm not going to throw you under the bus, dude. I'm. This is your out. You know, do something right. Do something ethical. Just ask him, because you're streaming to my channel. You know, I started. He knew I started that channel. It was not. Matter of fact, Kyle tried to lie about that later on and say that I didn't start the channel. Well, I have evidence that I did. Clearly, I mean, and so
clearly you got the
really,
judgment. You know, I mean, well, we'll get.
Yeah,
we'll get
I mean,
to that.
it's in writing. When I can tell you the date I transferred it over to him.
The
You
reason
can't fake
why
this
we're
stuff, you know?
the reason why we're covering this now, by the way, is that most of what Steve is saying right now has been substantiated by a court. This is in writing, legal in the eyes of the law.
This is straight objective.
In the eyes of the law, this is how the United States views this whole debacle drama.
Correct. And Mr. Atheist did not take advantage of that. When he found out that the Kyle had lied to him about the funding and the being able to take over the channel and remove me as a host, and you know, because I guess he wanted to replace me with Jimmy or whatever, he wrote a very, very I would say dishonest apology, non-apology, because it certainly wasn't an apology to me. It wasn't an apology to the fans.
He just I saw the apology. I could
do air quotes when you say apology, because
I wish I could pull it up and read it word for word.
Do you want me to find it for you?
Yeah, send me if you could find it for me. That would help me out so much, because
I'm pretty sure I have it saved on my phone.
I would love to like have the opportunity to like read it, you know, so people can kind of understand how insane this has been. Because, like, what reads to me as, like, a clear cut and dry, this guy made some serious mistakes and should be condemned for it, turns into, like, a morally ambiguous battle where, like, nah, they're both evil. And it's like, no, one person is clearly being wronged, and the other person is just mad about being wronged. Like, I would be mad, too.
It became, oh, well, you know, yes, Kyle stole money. Kyle screwed over the fans. Kyle lied to me. He hurt me because he was so close to me. But Steve's a poopy head. And I'm like, what the hell did I do? And yes, I'm happy that I've been vindicated. I love the fact that I had, you know, been 100% correct from day one about Kyle's bullshit. And the fact that he had lied to people. He had, you know, we'll get no spoilers, but he had faked the books. Big surprise. But this non-apology by Mr. Atheist disgusted me, because he shat on the Non Sequitur Show fans. Anybody who watched the show knew that I was always in touch with the Non Sequitur Show fans. They would contact me, and I was very close to them. I built the community as far as that. It wasn't Kyle responding to a lot of them. They didn't care.
Oh, I should also let you guys know, because people are asking a few questions about the 60,000. He did not steal $60,000 all at once from like one big stream. This is like over a year's worth of super chats, donations.
He took
Patreon,
everything that ever went to the show. Yeah, every dime that ever went to the show.
And like merchandise. And honestly, like the fucking Patreon looked like it was doing pretty fire before all this drama happened.
Yes.
And honestly, like even though Non Sequitur was never really like the largest thing within that community, it was always like this super respected podcast. Like I used to hear people talking about like the Non Sequitur as like one of the coolest places, you know, to be invited to and be a part of.
It probably could have been too, though.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it could have been. Who knows?
We were on par to break 100,000, no problem, by the end of that year, probably, or next year. At the time, I mean, we had been. Now we've been mentioned in Forbes.com because of the lawsuit. We've been, we had certain references here and there on blogs. There's a couple of references on Wikipedia to us. I know Trevor Val put us as something that he has on his Wikipedia. We had Landon Kurt Knoll, one of his pages had addressed us at one time. And also there was a presidential candidate that went by the name of Adam Kokesh, if you're familiar with him.
Oh, God.
In fact, that's how Cheshire's very first experience on the Non Sequitur show was actually having a discussion with Adam Kokesh. That was actually on the Wikipedia too. I think it has subsequently been changed, but needless to say, we were doing very well because people liked the format that we had, and it was great. One thing I'll never say is that the show was bad. We built something that was great, and it's unfortunate that Kyle did what he did because we worked together well as far as the show itself when we were on air. We played off each other very well. And things of that nature. Does that make sense? So I'm not going to detract from any of that because Kyle did a good job with me most of the time. There were some times where, I think he messed up, but for the most part, people enjoyed being on the show. It was something that people would message us, say, "Hey, dude, we want to be on your channel. We want to be on your show." That's how you've kind of like have a successful thing when people are lined up to go, "We want to be on your channel," right?
Right. I even debated on sending you guys a message about it, but I didn't want to seem pushy. I didn't know.
You weren't big enough back then to have. No, I have you.
You were big enough to be a part of Non Sequitur.
You were special enough. And you know what's the funniest part is our thing was actually having very small channels come on, and we would help them out. There are channels, and I'm not even going to get into them because some of them we don't have any contact with any longer. But we have channels out there right now that are well over 100,000, or even still 50,000 on some of them. We help get started. Numerous channels that we help get started. Now, my main channel doesn't even have that many. I only have 16,000 subs on my Steve McRae channel because I suck at self-promotion. But the channels that we started, many of them did very well for themselves. And
okay, so
we were like the launching platform for that.
Going back to Mr. Atheist, he started, okay, and here's just so we can recap for anyone new coming in. Mr. Atheist is a large YouTuber, at least now he's an exceptionally large YouTuber, who basically continued to stream with Kyle despite the fact that he was in litigation at this point and that the channel was contested. Mr. Atheist basically made all these claims saying that, Steve would get paid and that, that he's, he's terrible, but, like it's basically not his channel and that he supports Kyle in his basically a hostile takeover. It's hard. I want to call it a hacking, but it's not really hacking as much as it's just social engineering.
Maybe hijacking.
Yeah.
Hijacking might be.
Well, there was social engineering because, we'll get into it, I'm sure. But after Kyle had removed me, there became a 2-year-long assault against my character. There was a 2-year-long continual assault with slander and libel and defamation and
you say that like it's
vicious
over.
attacks against me. Yeah, well, it's not as much as it was.
I'm kind of expecting to kind of have a few people like come at me.
Yeah, well, they went after me. They went after Cheshire. They went after somebody else who I care very much about. They went after people that I love, all because they supported Kyle. Not well. You know what? I should rephrase that. They didn't support Kyle. It's just much they didn't for some reason like me because I didn't kiss their ass. And because I didn't bow down to them and kiss their ass, because I'm just not that kind of person. If I have an opinion, I'm going to give it to you. They were like, who's Steve to talk to us this way? Well, you're wrong, and you're wrong of this. Let me show you why you're wrong, kind of thing. And they didn't like that, so they sided with him.
Edgy.
I mean, yeah, I'm an edgelord, and so they didn't like that, and they were all like, well, Kyle did nothing wrong. Kyle, is the you know, the one that deserves everything, and you know, it's his channel, and Steve lied about this, and Steve committed fraud on this, and Steve's this, and of course, long story short, none of it was true, and that came out in court. So
Steve is like, so Mr. Atheist, like I said, big YouTuber, currently sitting at around 400K. When confronted with all of this information, like that, you know, basically Kyle stole the channel and he's refusing to pay his co-collaborators, here's the response that he had to that, which goes as follows. I was wrong. I was lied to. My trust was taken advantage of, and one of my best friends made me look like an asshole. Yeah, no dip. I believed my friend when he told me that he had a lawyer, that he had money, that he would pay Steve what he was owed, and that he had everything he needed to prove that the channel was his and that he would have the authority to remove Steve from this YouTube. Because I had trust in my friend, as many others did, I gave him the benefit of the doubt, a fact that Steve expressed understanding, a fact that even Steve expressed understanding, and for a time did not act as a God, this is a long word. Contemptuous. God, I hate my lisp. It's my lisp that makes it hard
dude,
to pronounce.
I could, let me just tell you, I could listen to you all night long. Straight up, dude.
Contemptuously towards me for that position. I also decided to stay out of it publicly. The only times I recall engaging publicly about it was my conversation with Steve, which ended amicably. Out of curiosity, how did that conversation go? Did it end amicably?
I guess so. I mean, by the way, if you want to put this in the video description afterwards, so that's my message to him, my open letter. I don't remember our last conversation. I remember he was upset because we had a certain show that he didn't like. He wanted to shut down conversation, and the whole point of the show was to have conversations, right? But his thing was, look, certain conversations we shouldn't even have because you're just, you know, so taboo. And I'm like, wait a minute here, you know, I agree that certain conversations I personally don't want to have, but if we decide to have one, nobody on the outside is going to tell us what we can and cannot talk about. It's period, right? It's our show. And that's how we approached it. But he was, you know, besties with Kyle, and Kyle wanted to kiss his ass, thinking that, you know, at the time, Mr. Atheist had a lot of subs, not this many. I mean, I think it was like, maybe, I'm gonna guess 50,000, maybe. Nowhere near what he has now. But he knew that Mr. Atheist had an audience, and he wanted to kiss his ass, and I wouldn't. And he even begged me. He's like, Steve, just make amends with you know, Mr. Atheist. You know, you don't have to tell him that he was right. You don't have to like admit any wrongdoing kind of thing, but just play nice with him. And I'm like, fuck it, whatever. I was like, I'll play nice with him, because I really had nothing against Jimmy at the time. I just disagreed with him, but he was coming after us, telling us basically what we can and cannot talk about. And I'm like, no, that doesn't happen, right?
We recently,
I guess it was amicable.
We recently got a super chat, and because it's a super chat, we'll allow for spoilers. The chat goes as follows: do you think you can still get the show back someday? And the answer to that question is most certainly yes. There is legal litigation happening, and we're gonna get into this fun, spicy bit just a little bit later. I know it's a long story, but it's well worth it. You know,
we're gonna get there.
If there was ever an underdog story, but on a note about Jimmy,
he will get. I'm assuming that at some point in the future, maybe not the near future because of how slow the legal system is, but in the future, I'm pretty sure one way or another, non sequitur will be back in the hands.
Well,
of Steve.
it's going to be. I'll give a quick spoiler because we don't want to get in the details yet. But quick spoiler: it's either channel back or life in jail. I mean, and I mean that a little bit, you know, facetiously, but yeah, there's a significant amount of jail time that we're looking at here.
Let's just say you don't want to piss off your local judge. Don't do that.
Yeah,
that he holds your life in his hands. That's not someone you want to piss off. Like don't call your judge a loser.
Imagine too. I mean,
don't try to bully him in a back alley. Don't take his lunch money because he might take your lunch money.
Maybe don't send a letter to the judge saying, "Here's how I'm going to comply with your order by not complying with your order."
Exactly.
There's something about Jimmy that I think kind of needs to be pointed out, and it's just like it's a level of hypocrisy. He wants to talk about ethics. He wants to talk about how everybody should be allowed to be who they are and be themselves. He likes to bloviate about how right he is morally. Meanwhile, this asshole. I don't know what to say.
Well, that's why I wrote him this letter, right? I wanted to appeal to that side of him. I was hoping that Mr. Atheist had at least a shred of ethics. Fun fact, he does not, in my opinion. It's zero. I mean, none whatsoever. I mean, because it was blatant what he did. In fact, when you read what you just read, you can.
I'm not even done reading it
in his voice. Oh yeah, but can you sense it was all about him? How it
it's like,
affected him?
I talked
all about me or the fans.
Oh, yeah, like it's just like, oh, it ended amicably according to my own like metric.
Yeah,
I'll say yeah, I guess, because again, I never really had like, I mean, we did have some words, but my thing was, hey, Mr. Atheist, you're friends with Kyle. You're streaming to my channel. Why don't you ask him where the money's at? What is wrong with that? Why don't you ask him, Kyle, I'm trusting you here. You're telling me you have the money for Steve. Where is it? I just want to see it. I just want to see the bank records. That's all. And I even told him, I gave him this. Hang on. I gave him this. I said, Mr. Atheist, and you can read what I wrote him. It is public information. I said, all you have to do is give me your word that you have seen his bank account with the money in there, and I won't bring it up again. I'll talk about it in court, but I mean, I'm not going to be pestering people for it. I'll trust his word on that. And he wouldn't even do that.
There's nothing really more you need to know about. I've had conversations with Mr. Atheist in private, and now they weren't like anything special. They weren't like anything terribly interesting, but the way he
spicy.
The way he presents conversations that he's had with people. He's like, oh, well, I thought we were friends and we've never had any problems in the past. It's like the last conversation and the only conversations I've ever had were us disagreeing about things. I don't know what you're talking about. He presents friendships, or he presents something different to the public. And if you can read between the lines of this, like if you can read and actually listen to what's being said instead of being led by your emotions about what is being written here, you will learn everything you need to know about Jimmy Snow. Just
right.
On public post.
Going back this Jimmy's response, he says the only times I recall engaging publicly about it was with my conversation with Steve, which ended amicably, and my asking a lawyer friend in his live stream whether or not Steve sharing Kyle's unredacted address was the equivalent to doxing. However, I never publicly stated that it was, though I will admit now that my belief that it is that. Man, he does not know how to write. Though I will admit now my belief that it is.
Lots of let me tell you why it wasn't, real quick, if I may, because the address was shown. Well, the address shown was the court document. It was also the address that Kyle had used for everything public. It was the address for the non sequitur show. It was that address, right?
So it's like you could find it like online. And
yes,
easily.
It was for all the correspondence. Everything that he put was under that address. It was public information at that point because he made it the address for the show.
It's part of the it's in the email documentation. So
you showed a business address. You are doxing.
Right, exactly.
Right, exactly.
All right, so yes, it show like if I have an address to my local Pizza Hut, that's doxing. Good to know.
According to Mr. Atheist, I guess.
If you notice what he's saying here, he's like, well, I didn't accuse Steve of doxing. I just asked somebody else. But I do think he was, though. So now you're accusing him. You weren't.
I wasn't accusing him before, but now I am.
I am now.
Right.
Yeah. Lots of things are on public record. Okay, back to the thing.
Sure.
Lots of things are on public record. Heck, I'm in the phone book. That doesn't make it okay to share. Also, it is incorrect that Kyle didn't have a residence there at the time, but I don't think Steve knew. I didn't think Steve knew that, so it wasn't lying when he had made that defense. So my positions. So my public positions. God, I cannot talk.
Do you want me to do it?
Yeah, Cheshire is pretty good.
Yeah. If you wanna give this a read.
Before. It's difficult.
Uh,
Yeah, it's no joke.
Yeah, give it a read. Sorry, it's hard. It's like it's written in such a way where it's like it feels like it wasn't like proofread, like he didn't read it out loud, which is like fine, but
I mean, such
it
little
reads
effort
like
from somebody from a non-apology, shocking.
it reads like somebody who's trying to reach a certain word count.
yeah, it kind of
So
does. Like it is instead of it's.
Yeah. So my public positions, those that would have affected Steve, were these. I expect Kyle to pay Steve. I believe Kyle had a lawyer. I am not going to publicly engage. I expect this to be resolved by the courts. I am not going to allow my live streams and comments to be hijacked with the issue. People who try to force it will be blocked.
And
So
just to interrupt
he
there,
followed through on
that's okay. Like if he doesn't, if he's saying that he doesn't want this discussion in his own forums, I understand. If he wants to be done with it, like so, there's no problem here.
This is totally fine, except that he was streaming to Non Sequitur with Kyle doing call-in shows at the time.
Right. Yeah,
so
exactly.
I mean,
he said they'll be blocked on my channel. First of all, they were blocking fans of the show on my channel as well. The mods.
They were blocking people on Non Sequitur, not on
that was
that's unacceptable.
That part's unacceptable, but in general, controlling the space that you
I
you
got
you
no
have.
issue with that. We all do that. You have to, and I do not begrudge him for that.
Like when you want to talk
here's the
about
thing.
cartoons, and then someone tries to bring up current day political topics, and then uses a super chat to try to get you to talk about it. It's like you gotta draw the line and keep
By the way,
things on
but
topic.
the fun fact. He says, I believe Kyle had a lawyer. He did not at the time. And this was another thing that I was trying to get people to say, okay, well, who's Kyle's lawyer? Kyle did not. He lied. He absolutely lied about having a lawyer and I believe, again, I'm more charitable than I think Cheshire. And that's good because Cheshire is the one that keeps me in check because I do tend to look for the best of people, even when I get screwed over sometimes. And I believe that Jimmy probably did believe very sincerely that Kyle had a lawyer. I think straight up Kyle did lie to everybody about that. And so I don't think that Mr. Atheist was lying.
I agree too. I think that Mr. Atheist would have to be a pretty stupid person if he didn't believe that Kyle had a lawyer.
Right. I do believe he was lying about not knowing about the channel
that
being mine, but
I think that his good intentions though do not matter. Like you have to investigate these things for yourself. Like as an influencer, you have a lot of what I like to call the YouTuber standard, which is actually higher than like regular standards. You can't pull the "he's my friend, therefore I believe him" card. You got to investigate it because
absolutely,
like as you're seeing now, it can affect your career and not just your like at-home mental stability.
There's one thing when you're being lied to from 2 or 3 or 4 different angles. If Steve was also lying, I can understand Jimmy just being like hands off. I don't know. This is my position in this. This is where I stand in this. I don't know what's going on anymore. There's also a difference in something like if you've got people that are say they have this information and then never present that information to you, and you're being lied to by somebody else, you kind of had no choice but to believe the friend that you are being lied to by, because the people who have differing information aren't willing to give it to you. Now, you guys are so nice. You guys are so sweet to Jimmy because you
gotta when you assume the best in everyone, right? If you assume the best possible scenario out of someone, then what ultimately is left with is the best possible truth. And if the best possible truth leaves the person looking like a piece of shit, then that's funny. And that's how I like to look at it.
It emphasizes the point that when I say that I believe that Mr. Atheist believed that Kyle had a lawyer, it emphasizes the point where I will call him out and say I believe that very strongly that he lied when he said to his followers that he didn't know Kyle did not have unilateral permission or ability or legal standing to be moved from the channel. He knew that we started that channel together. I mean, he absolutely lied about that. So, so when I give him the benefit of the doubt on some things, it makes it more, I think, credible when I give my opinion where I'm absolutely convinced that he lied.
I think there are times where yes and no. My question with Jimmy here isn't necessarily whether or not he believed Kyle. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt that he did in fact believe him. My question starts coming into, well, did you believe him because you actually trusted him, or did you believe him because you were lazy and it was convenient?
I
Well,
mean, that
probably
the
both.
answer the answer is probably number 2, because like
I think there's a mixture of both. But here's the funniest part, creepy. Mr. Atheist was part of the skeptic community, which I understand, and look, we both agree Earth is not flat, Earth is not young. We understand these things, but he claims to be this real critical thinker when he didn't investigate any of this,
with
right?
like
And as you said,
high ethics. In fact, if he's saying something about ethics, you ought to be listening to him.
overwhelming evidence that he had, in front of him. People were telling him, dude, you're just wrong on this. And of course, he didn't want to look into it. And so how do you maintain this image of being this, doubter and this skeptic, but not do your due diligence? And this is why I think that he tried to block people, anybody who was asking about that.
I
Like,
think
kind of
I think he made an oopsie and realized he made an oopsie, but didn't really want to admit that he was wrong. And I think it's more of an ego thing than like
Oh, absolutely.
like a
Yeah,
like
I
a
agree with
professional
that.
thing. I think he just realized, oh God, I did something lazy and stupid, and I don't want people to think I'm lazy and stupid. So if I don't admit I'm wrong, maybe no one will notice. And
It
clearly,
Yeah,
it's worked.
Well, and he
It would have
says he
looked
admits he's wrong,
so
but he
much
doesn't.
better to him. He would have looked so much better. And there was a couple people who did this, who had the opportunity, and would have looked so much better had they handled this kind of a situation properly. Now, in a lot of people's defense, a lot of people don't know how to handle this kind of a situation because a lot of people aren't in the public eye, quote unquote.
For me,
in
I
the same
tend
way,
to.
right?
For me, I just tend to watch from afar until
Right.
like I have more information.
Well,
I
and he
gave
could
him
have done that,
out.
right? Yeah, Jimmy could have absolutely taken that same route.
I gave him a gift.
He should be
I mean,
thanking you.
seriously, I gave him the best out possible. Dude, all you got to do is go ask him for the books. And if you tell me, I will trust your word that you have seen the funds. Period. That's all he had to do.
All right. By the way,
I don't think I was asking for too much.
for anyone who's like coming in live now or like doesn't understand necessarily the like what's going on, basically what happened was a YouTuber by the name of Mr. Atheist, or Jimmy as we are referring to him, basically worked
Fucking
and
weed.
promoted someone who stole and hijacked Steve McRae's channel and live streamed onto Steve McRae's channel while he was in the process of suing so he could get his channel back. Because as we all know, YouTube fucking sucks and will not help people no matter how obvious it is that one person is clearly in the right and one person is clearly in the wrong. It all has to be handled through lawyers and all that. So while this litigation was happening and the person who hijacked the channel basically got a cease and desist and was told that he shouldn't be live streaming, Jimmy, or Mr. Atheist, a YouTuber with currently 400,000 subscribers, started streaming onto his channel. Steve McRae made a public thing, which I'm not going to read it all today because that would be way too long.
It's too much.
But I do want to read his response. And basically, Steve McRae's response, or rather open letter, was just him saying, hey, all I want you to do, I understand that this is confusing, basically, like giving him a sort of an out almost. It's hard to explain, but basically he open letter basically asking him to actually address the issue. And well, he decided that he didn't necessarily need to address it in a very cohesive and smart way. So
Almost all of this would have been fine had Jimmy not been streaming to the Non Sequitur show with Kyle at the time.
yeah, there's one thing to be said for I said something stupid in the middle of a drama, and then there's another thing to be
Right.
I'm going to actively help the villain.
Meanwhile, you've got the 3 or 4 other friends of Kyle that were actively causing harm to the channel by hiding people, by ignoring the problem, by deleting comments, by by accusing Steve of medical fraud, because that's a thing, by accusing him of sexual harassment, that was also a thing that happened. It got absurd.
Anything they could fabricate, anything they could remotely try to say happened. And of course, None of it was true.
But before,
And here's the thing: my mistake was I put out too much information, right? Because I wanted to be as transparent as possible. And when you watch the Death of Non Sequitur show, Kyle wanted this judged in the court of public opinion. Okay.
Yes.
And knowing, I knew it would not go in his favor. I was like, there's no way that my audience is going to tolerate this person doing what he did. It's just so beyond the pale, especially when you admit it, because he didn't realize we're being courted, right? He didn't know we were being courted at the time, so he was very frank. Yeah,
Well,
I'm taking all the shit.
He knew.
Well, I don't know.
Recorded.
He may have. I mean, okay, but when
Well,
I even told him though,
he said,
when I
"Put
told
it
him,
out,
dude, I'm
man."
recording on this, he's like, yeah, fine, I know, whatever, put it out. Who cares? You know, he's like, if you, he said, if you think that it's gonna, like, if people are gonna think that way, that's fine. I'm prepared for that. No, you're not. But you know, it's so funny because you know you're not going to read the whole thing. But Mr. Atheist goes on to try to slander me, saying that I'm some kind of toxic narcissist because I wanted my show and I wanted my channel and I wanted justice done. How is that a toxic narcissist from somebody who actually has admitted to be a narcissist? And Kyle, which I firmly believe is a narcissist. I'm sorry, being ethical is not equivalent to narcissism. And they're not. They will absolutely lie to their audience. And I had made a career out of making sure that my audience has the most transparency possible. And because of that, people will take what I say and will manipulate it and literally take video clips and put them out of context. And one of which actually ended up in the court record was absolutely bullshit because, fun fact, Kyle never actually did move. We'll get into that. But I want to be as transparent as possible. Because of the court of the public opinion, because I value the court of public opinion.
Right. So going back to the letter, would you mind finish reading it, Cheshire? We'll try not to interrupt you.
Yeah, no problem. Where was I? Steve lying when he made that defense. So my public position were that. So regarding those positions, I will admit I was wrong. Or at least that seems to be the case now. I was wrong that Kyle was going to pay Steve. He assured me he would, and I believed him. I was wrong that Kyle had a lawyer, or if he does, it is the most incompetent lawyer I have ever heard of for not filing or appearing at court. I was correct that it would be resolved by the courts, and in this case, Steve won the case by default judgment, and I suspect that Kyle actually fought the case. Had Kyle actually fought the case, he would have lost that too. Though ironically, had he fought it, I doubt he would have been on the line for much. I mean, definitely not as much as perjury, but, you know, whatever.
I mean, you know, it's only $60,000. It's not that. Actually, no, sorry, it's $45,000. Sorry, that's not that much money.
It's treble damages. So it's the 30 that would have been the 50-50 split, and then treble, which is multiplied by 3, and then lawyer fees on top of it. So we're looking at,
I mean, he didn't pay for a lawyer.
90. Yeah, but Steve did, and Kyle owes Steve's litigation fees.
Yeah, he has to pay for my. Well, it hasn't been ruled yet. He hasn't been ruled yet on the legal fees, but we already know it's going to happen because
it was in the default judgment. In the default judgment.
No, the legal fees weren't. The treble damages were.
I'm pretty sure I read legal fees, but maybe I was looking at the wrong thing.
Yeah, it wasn't resolved yet, but because of
I mean, either way, it's a lot of money. So retroactively speaking, it's seems
definitely more than the 30K he would have to split with Steve from the 60.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a lot more money. Imagine flushing your life down to. I can't imagine owing anyone more than like $1,000.
Spoilers.
It went from being a total of 60,000 going missing, and he would have only had to give Steve 30 to 90 plus.
Spoilers too. He can't file for bankruptcy for this type of debt either, because it was fraud. Fun fact. All right, so you want to continue on?
Yep.
I do not regret refusing to let people hijack my social media outlets. ... That is not something I was wrong about doing. At the end of the day, I trusted my friend, and that friend screwed me with my own trust. As far as ethics go, I never promised anything, and in fact, I only expressed my expectations. This is my first definitive public statement, and you can read it as this.
Before we go into that, I do want to say that one of the most influential shows for me growing up had to have been the anime series Case Closed.
Oh my god.
So I love
Yeah.
Case Closed, and there's this one part where the main character is asked this question: what do you do if it turns out the culprit of the crime is is someone you care about or someone that you love? And the answer is that the main character gives is, I'll do everything in my power to prove his innocence, and failing that, I'll be the one to point the finger. Because that's what I would want my friends to do to me.
Absolutely.
And it's the same thing here. It's like, but except he didn't like point the finger. He really just kind of like waited until it got bad for him, and then gave a non-apology where he throws Kyle under the bus. And it's like, cool, throw Kyle under the bus. He's a dick, but like,
The thing that kills me about it is that isn't necessarily that he threw Kyle under the bus. Kyle deserves to be thrown under the bus. And not only does he not apologize to Steve at all and tell Steve to go fuck himself, and Boole to go fuck himself, by the way, but also the fans who did nothing. The fans did nothing to Jimmy outside of being like, hey, Jimmy, why are you showing up on Non Sequitur Show with the person who stole from us? Nope, delete, ban. I don't want anything.
I did something horrible and fucked up, and people are calling me out.
Hijack my stuff. How dare you hijack my threads? Nobody's hijacking your threads. You made a post saying you're showing up on Non Sequitur Show, and people are asking you why.
Right. That's exactly what happened too. People were like, "Look, we donated money to this, and some of it was strictly, supposed to go to me, and they had expectations of, a financial arrangement that Kyle and I had. And by the way, again, Mr. Atheist was well aware of this. I mean, I tell you right now, he was in these conversations with Bullinator, myself. He knew that we started this podcast from scratch. He understood it was a 50-50.
When he talked to me, Jimmy called me in private and said that what if I had information that made it what Kyle was doing, like if Kyle is in the right here. I'm like, okay, if Kyle is, like, you would have to, one, give me that information, and I would have to assess that to see if that were even the case. But two, even if Kyle does have the power to do whatever he's doing, he's still an asshole.
Oh, definitely.
All right, and continue on.
Yeah, let's finish the rest of this, and then we'll give our final thoughts, and then we'll move on to the court
litigation. Because it gets so
litigation.
much worse. This is like foreplay.
There's so much.
All right, let's do this.
Okay, I'll go fast. Kyle fucked a lot of people who cared about him, and frankly, he fucked over Steve. Now, regarding the attacks towards me from Steve McRae and crew, I am not apologizing to Steve for my being incorrect to trust Kyle. I took no public action and made no public statements about him regarding this case, and so his demand for an apology is strange in the first place. Bitch, you streamed to his channel!
And I didn't demand for apology. What I said was I think that I and the fans are owed an apology. That's not a demand. That is what do you do when you fuck up and you hurt people? You apologize to them. Not a demand. It's just reasonable expectations from a person who claims to be an ethical individual.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't clear. Mr. Atheist called me on Facebook. Also, right now, if things had gone differently, I would have the greatest sympathies for Steve. But the horrific way he has spearheaded a campaign of harassment and cyberbullying of myself, about which I don't actually care much, end bracket, but more importantly, anyone who didn't kiss his ring and publicly attack and disparage Kyle is disgusting and extremely unethical.
Which never happened. None of that ever happened. Zero.
Steve was fucked over, ... That I will admit. I also think Steve is a toxic narcissist who now commands an army of trolls who will undoubtedly...
He fucking commands an army of trolls!
Power! Yeah,
using his army of trolls, he'll fucking take over Gondor.
I have asked the audience. I've asked, and anywhere I go on, if you were one of my trolls, please tell me who you were, because I'm not aware of this. There was supposedly troll meetings that I was never invited to myself, that I'm unaware of. I don't know anything about these things, and yet there's this weird narrative that people are running that, yeah, I have this army of trolls. It's like, who? I mean, you mean the people that wanted to know where their money went? Those are the trolls that you're talking about? Those are not trolls. Those are the people wondering where the hell the money went.
But
or people that are asking Jimmy why he's showing up on
just like
non-sequitur.
the line, an army of trolls. Like, this motherfucker thinks that Steve McRae here has the power to command these people, like an army
You
of
say
people.
mockingly. What up with that?
And also, I'm just going to object to the use of the word cyberbullying. That's something that happens to you when you're like 15, being harassed by like
it's
friends
these
at
words, It's these
school.
hyperbolic words, right? And by the way, in the live chat, I see dozens of people that are from my channel. All of them are going, "What the hell was Jimmy even talking about?" These are not trolls. These are people that are like, "We wanted to know the truth." And I guess nowadays, if you ask for the truth, that is cyberbullying. And I don't understand how that works. I don't get that.
This is what I mean. This is Jimmy basically saying, "Hey, I used your channel, like you fans of the Non Sequitur Show channel, to launch my channel. I used you as a footnote to kind of expand my own. I used you as a springboard, which, you know, most of the fans are fine with. But to then turn around and spit on them and say they're all trolls for daring to question why Jimmy Snow was showing up on the Non Sequitur Show while it was in litigation after Kyle stole money from them is absurd."
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it's beyond absurd.
you know, we kind of spent a lot of time on this subject, so we're going to move on to the litigation part. But for those of you who are
Yay.
interested in reading all the responses, I have updated the description with the link to the Great Debate Community, and it has both, I believe, both Steve's open letter to Mr. Atheist and Mr. Atheist's response. But honestly, you just can't top has an army of trolls at his like beck and call.
I got
like
power.
like he's like fucking Saruman from like the Lord of the Rings. Like, yes, he sends his orcs to attack.
My fans are the kind of fans that go out of their way to try to say, "Look, Steve fucked up here. Let's show where Steve messed up so we can get brownie
Steve's
points." And I'm
army
like,
of trolls
"Yeah, I
spend
fucked
more
up."
time
You know,
trolling Steve than they spend trolling anybody
I
else.
love my fans because they keep me in check when I make a mistake, right? And I'm not perfect. I say things that are incorrect. But you know what happens on my channel? It gets corrected instantaneously because I have people that will say, "No, I think you made a mistake here. Here's the actual facts. Let's correct it." And so you get the most accurate information from my channel because we all self-correct each other.
So,
And yet when people say you can't disagree with Steve, it's like, wait a minute, no, my channel is based upon that. Please disagree with me if you think I'm wrong, but use evidence.
Can I
Use
point out
words.
one other thing about Jimmy Snow? This is a guy who went on an entire sexual harassment spree about a guy who goes by Steven Anderson, saying he was sexually attracted to pumpkins, to shut down something called NIV. Now, they were being incredibly like homophobic and horrible.
yeah, I mean, don't get me
However,
wang,
he's-
NIV is terrible, but it's
Perhaps,
Yes,
yeah, nobody
exactly.
disagrees with that.
But,
Yeah,
like,
and we
this
would have been
is-
on board with him on that, right? That we would have been allies on that fight,
What
right?
did Jimmy do in that fight? Look at the tactics he used. He
yeah,
went
like
out
he
to
got a
troll
group of
this guy,
people to start calling
Army of
harassing
what?
him about his sexuality, right? And so now there is a little bit of irony and hilarity in that, but he's done all of the things that he's accusing Steve of doing in this case,
Projection
which,
at his
which
finest.
Steve hasn't done.
Either way, point is, when I do the video, I'm gonna definitely be able to condense this a bit more, and I'll be talking about Mr. Atheist, and like unless if he wants to reach out to me and like fucking apologize, like honestly, you know. But
I would tell you, I would love for him to justify what he did.
like I
I
don't
would love to hear that. I really would.
I don't think you can really justify this, but you can at the very fucking least like apologize, and like at least then it's a little bit more acceptable. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't think the friendship is ever gonna be fixed, but like
I
at
don't think
least
there was a
like
friendship.
I don't think
could
I don't think I
respect
could
him.
forgive him. I look, I will forgive people that I honestly think have done some kind of thing against somebody, right? If I have been slighted by somebody and it's an honest admission of that, I probably will forgive them. But I don't think that he has a shred of decency in him and ethics to even if he did apologize, I could never believe that it was true, right? I would
think
really have a hard
there's-
time with that.
I think
Right.
the problem with a friendship is that it has to go both ways, and I don't think any of Jimmy's relationships would go both ways. From my
but
understanding.
okay, by the way,
It's all
just
about
in
him,
case if people are wondering, I actually do know about the situation, and I'm getting a lot of questions. but Jimmy or
I
Mr.
broke the line with
Atheist has a
pumpkins.
big theme of pumpkins, at least at the time with his YouTube channel. There used to be a conservative Christian group that like literally was advocating for bringing back stoning for homosexuals. Like
Yeah.
absolutely awful
one of them,
people.
one of them went after me because I went after him for that, right? I condemned that, and so they made a video about me trying to make me to be what they call a rape apologist kind
Oh,
of
are
thing.
you talking about Matt Powell?
Yes,
but
I mean, one of the
Oh.
front runners of that group of vile, morally reprehensible people that wanted to bring back stoning for gay people, and I spoke out about that, and I'm the one vilified for speaking out against that. I mean, hello.
Yeah, so Mr.
How is he
Atheist
the ethical person here?
he organized this thing where this group of horribly homophobic, very conservative, very Christian, he organized a like call-in thing where during one of their sermons or some sort of fundraiser or rally or something, he kept calling to church, and every time the pastor answered, it would be a different person asking about how we like to fuck pumpkins, which is really funny, but also
Yeah, it was
not
pretty
something a influencer should be telling people to do.
It's hypocritical.
Commanding
is what it
people,
is.
yeah.
You
Yeah,
can't
I mean,
you can't tell me that this is unacceptable, but also be like doing it. You know, you got to
To
lead
prove
by
my
example.
Right.
To prove my
Right.
point to the live chat,
It
have
was
I ever
ridiculous.
asked anybody to go troll anybody? If you have seen me or heard me tell you to do that, please say so and show us the evidence of that. And I guarantee it, not one person will give you any evidence of that.
I don't
You're not
know
a rich
why
dictator anymore.
pumpkins. I think
one
pumpkins
person.
are just like a funny name, you know?
Except for
No,
Smitty, he'll create it.
came
No, I love Smitty.
from the pumpkins came from something that Steven Anderson had said in regards to like gourds in general, and because it was near Halloween, it was like October, they made it like, well, pumpkins are a gourd, and so it kind of like just expanded from there.
Yeah, so they're just, I mean, honestly, it's just like a funny word, and also, like, fuck that guy. But also, it's not something you really should be, like, asking people to engage in, like, that sort of, like, I think there's better ways to protest than, like, spamming someone's phone line and making jokes about how they like to fuck pumpkins. You know, it's funny, but it's not something that you want to be the head of.
Well, I don't even judge
There
that.
are
I don't
ways.
care. Again, these are people that are sick, morally reprehensible people. Okay. And I'm not going to go out of my way to do these types of things. It's just not how I do my channels. But I mean, we all like these scam videos where people, call up these scammers and fuck with them. I enjoy those kind of things.
Yeah,
Right? But at the same, but he's one claiming that I have these people doing all these things for me that none of which have ever happened. None of which.
The closest thing I think Steve has ever gotten to asking people to do something even remotely related to this is asking people to not forget, and if you have earnest questions, to ask those people. So we can't answer for Jimmy. We can't tell you an answer for whatever. If you want to ask us, hey, why did Jimmy do this? We can speculate, but we can't answer.
Yeah, I'm not
I
directing
can't.
people to go ask him. I'm just saying I don't have those answers. If you want to
Honestly,
go-
like,
you would have to ask him. But
I'm
not
gonna
telling
be
people to go do it.
with the worst YouTuber video that's coming out. My goal is to cover. I mean, I'm gonna talk about what Jimmy did because I don't think this is acceptable. I don't think what he did was acceptable. You can't just say, well, because the other person's an asshole, I have no guilt in this and shouldn't apologize. That's just not acceptable behavior in my eyes. If I fuck up, I want to be held accountable, and I want to know that, like, I should say sorry, but I don't know. Point is, not exactly not the best moment in this guy's career. And with that said,
It's the thing that launched him, though, which is the bizarre thing. Like, one of the things that got Jimmy going was first his appearances on Non Sequitur Show and using that, and then he told the Non Sequitur Show fans to go kick rocks. Then during that time, he was also doing the NIFV thing, for which people who were part of that group and part of Kyle's kind of group of friends were saying that Steve was undermining, and the stuff that was going on with the Non Sequitur Show was undermining their work in regards to taking down this homophobic group.
and it
Which
all
had-
fucking comes full circle.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Kyle's gay. And so Steve speaking out against Kyle meant he was undermining. It was absurd.
Absolutely absurd. So moving forward, let's start with this court case. When did you decide that you needed to lawyer up, and when, and like how did like the first round of like hearings go? Like,
Okay,
like
So
how does this work?
yeah, so Kyle said sue me, and I said at the time that I didn't think that I could, and I should have known better because I know a verbal agreement is binding, right? That's I did have a little bit of law. I knew that was binding, but I would have to come up with so much, documentations and money and things to finance this that I didn't think it would be feasible to sue him. However, Interplayer 3, unbeknownst to Kyle, a very well-off friend of mine that I've known for quite some time, said, "Oh wait, no, you know what? We're not going to let Kyle get away with this. I will fund your lawsuit." And so we gave him numerous cease and desist. He ignored all of them. We filed in North Carolina business court. Kyle, I'll just do this quick summary. We filed in the court. Kyle did not show up for the court case. Okay, he didn't respond to it. We finally got a summary judgment, a default judgment. It was partial only for the fact, as Chester had mentioned before, we couldn't ask for finances because we didn't have those records yet. Although if we never are produced, we obviously can at some point. But the judge said, yes, you have by affidavit everything that you have said. We've substantiated because Kyle did not contest it. You have a summary judgment. Kyle was found liable for fraud, fraudulent conversion, unfair and deceptive trade practices, breach of fiduciary duty, and breach of contract. And so when we had that default judgment, for some strange reason, people went to Kyle, and this is my interpretation. Kyle and some people got together and they tried to come up with a scheme to try to overturn that default judgment. And again, I'm not going to be able to prove this. Okay, so this is my personal opinion, but based upon what I've seen and based upon the evidence I've seen, this was not just Kyle's, coming off with the top of his head. I think
there's a handful of inferences you can make if you look at kind of the way things lined up and who was streaming when with what information.
Correct. And so Kyle decided to first write a letter to the court saying that here's all the finances. They were unaccounted, they were not audited. He included all the things that he supposedly did for the channel and tried to bill me for $20,000, right? Which, by the way, court doesn't work that way. If you want to get money out of me, you have to do a countersuit, right? And so,
he just sent the court like a bill, like, haha, I've actually owed money, and now I want you to make.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. He just sent a letter, right, which was complete horse shit from start to finish. And he claimed that the business was a loss. There was a profit loss, and that I ended up owing him $20,000 for services. Right? I mean, it was absurd. My lawyer was like, "Is this guy for real?" It was a blatant fraud on the court to begin with, right? But the worst part of it all was in the letter that he wrote. He told the judge, "This is my compliance to the court order, but I'm not going to comply because I'm going to retain 50-50 partnership, and I'm not going to turn these things over." Right? He told the judges in the letter to the court. Right? This is ballsy.
He told
right?
the court he was going to delete so he got a letter of demand from Steve's lawyer saying you can't delete anything because it might be permissible as evidence in court. So don't delete anything.
Evidence tampering is a serious,
right. And
like that's like perjury,
Right. And so the court then said in the default judgment, hey, hand over everything, including Twitter, including Discord, including blah, 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 any accounts related to Non Sequitur and all of its assets and Non Sequitur itself. Then Kyle wrote a letter called Compliance with Court Order that he was deleting the Twitter account because it had personal information in it. And that Steve might release that personal information, and that was the justification. But then he never he deleted it for a certain period of time. Then he brought it back and changed the handle.
Yeah, there's something called criminal spoilage. But it gets worse. It gets much, much, much worse. So we had the default judgment. So he concocted this plan to say that he never lived at the place he was served. Now he was dating a.
Oh, that was 2 days after the letter. He did this letter of compliance, and the court sent him this information at that address, and he was originally served at that address. And then 2 days after he sent this letter, in response to the default judgment, he then decided that he didn't live at that address anymore.
Even though that was the address he used in his letter, but okay,
Right.
So he had people convince him that he could convince the judge that he never lived at that address, and he tried to run this narrative that I purposely went out of my way to have him served at an old address. Which, you know, anybody who, you know, spends tens of thousands of dollars in a lawsuit, you know, that's how they go about doing it, right? They clearly want, you know, to be served at the wrong address so you can have it overturned. That just makes a lot of sense, right?
Okay, before we go any farther, there's a lot of people asking questions, so I'm just gonna quickly recap on everything that happened so far.
Sure.
Quick question: the guy's name is Nick, but like, what's like his handle? Like, what should I refer to? Is Nick okay, or does he have a last name? Because I know you're Steve McRae, your old co-host, like
Kyle.
Is it like is there a last name or
Kyle Curtis?
Okay, yeah.
Is his name.
So Kyle Curtis
is what he goes by. Yeah.
Yeah. So Kyle Curtis and Steve McRae start a podcast together called The Non Sequitur Show, which centers around the idea of debating people with all kinds of weird fringe beliefs and also non-fringe beliefs. It's a show where you basically debate. It's like the greatest debate in the universe, except with more of a focus on skepticism as opposed to humor and entertainment. Kyle decides that he should be the sole owner of the channel and also was the person in charge of managing the funds. So one day, out of the blue, he decides to kick Steve off of the channel he started and not pay him for any of the work he's ever done, while also claiming that he would pay him for the work he's done. At this point, Kyle's collected a little over $60,000, give or take, of fan donation money, whether it be Super Chats, Patreon, Teespring, whatever have you. Kyle has taken a shitload of money for the explicit purpose of basically profiting him and only him, despite the fact that it was a 50-50 partnership between Steve and Kyle. One day Kyle kicks Steve off and also starts simultaneously working and live streaming with another big YouTuber by the name of Mr. Atheist, also known as Jimmy Snow. Jimmy and Kyle work together despite all this drama going on. When people start questioning Jimmy about what exactly he did and why he was doing what he was doing, Jimmy got defensive, started claiming that Steve had an army of fucking trolls and that Steve was a bad person, therefore he didn't need to apologize for any of the awful behavior he not only condoned but helped support, and at the same time sent even more drama Steve's way and not in any way contributing towards a positive outcome. Basically, he used his larger platform to shit on Steve, and that's kind of awful, and I would expect more out of the content creators that I watch. And right now, we're going over the legal stuff, because while all this shit is happening in the behind the scenes, there's an actual court battle happening, and that's what we're talking about now. Steve files a suit within the legal courts due to the help of a wealthy friend of his and wins default judgment. Kyle then tries to bullshit the judge by saying he's not going to comply and also he's destroying evidence. And Steve is going to tell us how well that went.
Yeah, that was a good summation, by the way. Yeah, you have a really good succinct way of putting it, because that was perfect. All right, so he decided to try to overturn this default judgment, which you can do. You can petition the court to overturn it, set it aside, right? If there's a reason to set aside, right? There has to be a moving cause. Well, his justification for that was, in his mind's eye, that he wasn't served at the right address because he had claimed that he'd been living with his boyfriend, Ben. And when he submitted to the evidence to the court of this, and fun fact, it wouldn't even matter whether he was living at his boyfriend's or not. Legally speaking, he was properly served, and I said this from day one, and it came to be the case. But he thought it was legally for some reason, because he had some bad legal advice from I think a dishonest lawyer on the internet, that he would try to overturn it by saying he wasn't served properly and that he was living somewhere else, and that I had willfully served it at the older address to make sure that he didn't get it to get a default judgment, which makes absolutely no sense.
Because he never
But, you know,
moved.
Fun fact, yeah, it came out later that he never moved.
So we'll
but
just say that right now. He never moved.
he never
So
moved.
he
That's
claimed that he
established.
never got a letter that was sent to his address because he had moved and that was the old address, while
Even
still
though-
living at that address.
Even though
the
the
best
3 weeks.
part of that is, do you want to know how we found out he had never moved?
How? Oh god.
Ben.
Yeah, I'm getting there. But the best part, I think, was 3 weeks after he got served, he was in a Discord saying to people the papers that I was served,
Yes.
which is in the court record as well. I mean, so it's just like, wait a minute here.
It's in the court record. I also have a video on my channel that's edited together. Kyle saying the original papers that I was served in October, which was before the default judgment.
And then he's telling the people that he never was served, right? So it made no sense. But anyways, so he tried to run this scheme that he was living with Ben. Now, he had submitted a lease agreement with him and Ben's signature on it. And fun fact, come to find out, it was not Ben's signature. We'll tell you who it was in a few. You can probably figure it out. And he submitted some financial documentations from Discover that he had been living with Ben, and something from Amazon, and some Zelle payments that he was paying for rent.
So those didn't show up until way later.
Yeah, but over a period of time, he was submitting this as evidence. And by the
Yeah.
way, he didn't have a lawyer prior to any of this. However, when he decided to have this rebuttal to the court that he was, improperly served, and the default judgment should be set aside, he had a fundraiser from a unscrupulous YouTuber that raised $6,000 for a lawyer. He got a lawyer. The lawyers, submitted all this stuff. The lawyer then, after it came out that, I don't want to jump to the end. So we had all this documentation that he was living somewhere, even though it wouldn't have mattered whether that was true or not to the court case. But we were like, what is this evidence? We know he wasn't living this, because Ben had contacted me and said, hey, what is going on with this court case? Because, my name's coming up with this. And I was like, well, Kyle's claiming that you live, and I didn't contact Ben. Ben contacted me, but I was like, he's claiming that he lived with you, and you have this lease with him. And he's like, what lease? And I was like, well, here, this lease that you and Kyle supposedly signed. He's like, that's not my signature. And Kyle ended up forging his signature. And by the way, spelling his name wrong. His old boyfriend's name he spelled wrong on the lease. The name is actually spelled wrong on the lease. And we had during this time where he had a lawyer, we were trying to think how
That
is
is all kinds of fraud.
Oh
He
yes.
also,
Absolutely.
so Kyle faked screenshots, faked bank statements, faked Amazon purchases for some reason, faked the signatures, faked the Zelle. He submitted a lot of forged evidence to the court, and his boyfriend / not boyfriend at the time, Ben, noticed and found out. And the way he got, knowingly, because he had submitted this stuff before he got a lawyer, then he did a GoFundMe to get a lawyer so he could submit more fraud.
Yep. And here's the thing. This has already been
This
established.
is like
This is not just our
horrible.
opinion.
Just gonna GoFundMe to pay the legal fees.
Yes, and we okay.
Oh,
So
there was some moron that was tweeting out that you can't use GoFundMe to get legal representation. It's part of GoFundMe's advertisement. It's part of their shtick that, hey, if you need legal representation, you can, but you can't if you're the defendant in a criminal case, anything along those lines.
Yeah.
Well, guess what Kyle is now?
Now,
In a criminal case.
oh god, yeah. All right.
there's criminality coming up. Okay, so So the guy that's funding the court case, he had noticed that on one of the Discover records that he had sent to the court to say that he was living with Ben, the code at the top, the mailing barcode, didn't match what was in the written part. The zip codes didn't match. So there's a specific code, the intelligent barcode, that Kyle didn't change that. But what he did do is he changed physically the address using Photoshop. And he caught this. And we submitted that.
Photoshop. I don't think we know what he used Photoshop, but it was probably.
I think. Well, he has Adobe Photoshop, so I'm just gonna. So yeah. Well, he did manipulate other things through Adobe, so I assumed it had to be Photoshop. Yeah. But irrelevant. The fact is, he did change it, right? And so no, it was Photoshop because we know it was Photoshop because we looked at the data, the metadata, not the metadata. I'm sorry, the PostScript data. Yeah, it's not metadata.
You got caught in that. We had some other idiot running around calling metadata for like 2 months, and now it's stuck in your brain.
It's not metadata. It's PostScript data. But anyways, we had submitted that to court, and he denied this vehemently. Right? He's like, no. This is just their mistake. They messed up. You know, I'm working with Discover to figure out why it doesn't match. But as we were doing this,
using his troll army, Steve managed to Photoshop Kyle's records before they got to the court.
I'm just that good.
It's all thanks to the troll army. Without them, really, this is the whole thing wouldn't work out.
So much more bizarre than this, because during this time we had found because Kyle uploaded the PDF, which has all the documentations for the Discover records. We had looked at the data that had been changed, because when Adobe changes something, it leaves a record in the PostScript file.
It looks off visually, and that visual tip-off.
Yeah, Acrobat, Adobe Acrobat, yeah, Premiere, whatever it was. But Acrobat leaves something in there, and it shows the changes, right? And so we had found every edit that he made on that document, right? It was objective because
36, wasn't it?
There was 2 documents, and I think the one was like 30 something and the other one was like 20 something. But the fact was that he went through and he found every edit. I went through on my own. I wrote a little program in Python. He wrote a little program in Python. I took his and I modified it, and we found every edit that he made by this Python code. And when we discovered when we subpoenaed Discover and Zelle and Amazon, and all this stuff, it came back. All this stuff had been altered. Matter of fact, every edit that we had found matched the alterations 100%. Every one of them we found. It was like a fingerprint. And there was people out there going, "Oh, this doesn't really prove anything. This isn't, evidence that he had altered everything."
And I think that's exactly what it is.
It's exactly 100%. I mean, anybody knows about computers would go, look, this is an edit. This is what it means here. Okay,
it's like getting access to a Google Doc that's been heavily edited, and then going back to the original version and being like, "Oh, it was edited," and then someone's like, "Oh no, that was never edited to begin with. That was fucking magic."
Yeah, and so he, the judge, we submitted all this stuff, right? And the judge said, look, somebody's lying here. And the judge wanted depositions. So he wanted depositions of Kyle and Ben, right? And I was never being deposed. Nothing was ever questioned from me from the court, even though people were going around going, "Oh, well, Steve's going to have to be."
So Ben found out and was like, "Wait, hold the fucking phone." And submitted an affidavit to the court saying, "I never signed this paperwork." And the evidence Kyle was using that he lived there was signed paperwork from Ben, who was supposedly the landlord. So Ben comes forward and says, "I never signed any of this paperwork. That's not my signature." So the judge goes, "Okay, so now there's a credibility problem with opposing affidavits."
And an affidavit. And there was an affidavit that he had submitted under Ben's name.
Yeah, there was an affidavit under Ben's name, and then there was one thing with a notary that he had changed the information of the notary on.
Changed the date of the notary, right? Right. And so there's this fuckery abound, right? And so the depositions happened, and his lawyer had told him, she said, "Do you have any reason to lie? Because fun fact, he already been to prison before. He is a convicted felon. Why, do you have any reason to lie about this?" He's like, "No, I wouldn't lie about any of this because, I don't want to go back to prison." He's like, "Yes, I'm telling you the truth and all this." After all this came out, and we got the actual evidence from Discover showing that this was all forged stuff, his lawyer withdrew from the case. The $6,000 that probably nobody has receipts for, right? Nobody even knows even how much money he spent on the case.
How the
and how much
fuck
he got
does
out of
someone
it.
like that get $6,000?
Well,
Because they had Cheshire can explain
that was the
in a second.
GoFundMe.
That was a GoFundMe.
Yeah,
but,
I know they got a GoFundMe, but who's donating to a GoFundMe like
The
that?
people who hate Steve.
Yeah, it was all. It wasn't. Yeah, it was all these. If you look at the GoFundMe, it was all
Steve
names like
draining wallets with his troll
Yeah.
army.
It was all.
Okay,
It was
there
all.
were people. There were funds that were given in the name of my dog.
Yeah,
That's
it's
kind
weird.
of funny as hell.
Right?
Yeah, no, I thought a lot of these
I
were
thought
funny.
it.
I'm not even gonna front. I
Like,
was like,
I
these are
mean,
hysterical, but-
I can imagine. I cannot imagine wasting your money on something so pure.
Right?
yeah,
um,
like Steve's a poopy head kind of thing, and it's just like, okay, if you want to spend money on this, go knock yourself out. And by the way, I thank everybody who gave to that fundraiser, because without them, we wouldn't have prolonged it to the point where we could establish that all this stuff was fraud, and
Right.
And so, but in the deposition, the lawyer had asked him these questions, and he just outright lied during the deposition, which, by the way, is perjury because you're in front of two
Well,
officers of the court.
Steve's lawyer specifically asked Kyle about the Discover documentation, the bank statements. Right? Can you show us that we asked for this bank statement, and this bank statement? You gave us this one, but didn't give us this one. Will you pull them up? And Kyle says, no, I want to talk to my lawyer. And so Steve's lawyer says, well, your lawyer's right here. Can she pull them up and confirm? And he's like, no. And so Discover was subpoenaed. And when Discover was subpoenaed, the subpoena came back and the account didn't exist at that time.
Yep, the Discover account did not exist for the records that he had. Now, I don't know how more objectively you can show something to be fraudulent if the account wasn't even open until 2 months after the actual records that he had. He had changed the October statement to August. He had literally gone in and changed the dates, and we found all those edits.
So basically, he changed the date from October to August. A bank account that was used to store the money hadn't been open till October.
No, it wasn't to store the money. No, it wasn't money. It wasn't the accounts to store the money. This was a Discover statement that's saying he was paying
still have
Ben.
no idea where the
We
money
have
went.
no idea what any of that is.
So
As
he
far
might
as the
he
money-
might have just
yeah.
sent it to him on PayPal or something.
Yeah, we have no idea. We did, there was somebody, Red's Rhetoric did an interview with Ben, and at one point he had asked him about anything that Kyle was doing, and Ben said that Kyle offered to hook up Ben's account with the funds coming in from Non Sequitur, and Ben was like, hell nah.
Yeah, and
So that would have been an entirely third party, completely unrelated, getting the direct funds from the Non Sequitur show related to Kyle. So
Which he's
there-
already lost.
yeah,
right,
and
exactly.
and Kyle's lawyer, by the way, and this is all on record, by the way, I have videos of these things too. If you go to my channel, there's videos of of how we discover this. There's videos of the Discover things. All this has been heavily documented. Okay. So I don't remember the name of the video itself, but on my channel somewhere, there's a Discover thing, and it shows exactly how Kyle edited it. And this was before we even got the Discover subpoena, but afterwards we had a video confirming it. But his lawyer said, no, this is, I cannot continue with this. And I even said, she's probably going to withdraw. I used the word recused, and Kyle made a big mockery of that. Judges recuse themselves. They don't withdraw, whatever. I knew that she was going to quit on him because it was unethical for her to continue, because her client was directly lying to her under deposition and under circumstances that a lawyer has to recuse themselves.
Like they could
Wh-
potentially, like, here's the thing, right? Like,
Or
'cause if the
withdraw,
lawyer, if the lawyer accepted that money, you know, it could potentially happen. Like worst case scenario, like, you know how pawn shops can't like if they get a stolen item
Mhm.
and they paid a person for the stolen item, like that's 100% loss for the pawn shop. They don't get
Yes.
their money
Right.
back.
She
They
cannot
have to.
perpetuate a fraud on the court. As he
So
was doing.
if she took money from Non Sequitur show, then what would have happened or I don't know if it's she or he, but either way, if she took the money for Non Sequitur show, she could be liable for every cent she was paid if she loses this case, which was already lost.
Yeah, it would have affected her and her
That's like saying, I'll give you debt.
By the way, she's got a good reputation.
I'll pay you in debt.
This was not some, fly-by-night lawyer. This was a very, and I got nothing against her. She did her job really well, which what she had to work with, right?
It gets better. The lawyer that Kyle got was a lawyer that used to work under the judge of the case.
That is true. She was a clerk for the judge. And so she especially did not want to look bad in front of her mentor. But again, when your client is lying to you, it's been demonstrated. It's not even a matter whether the ruling has to happen. It is objective fact when you get a subpoena back saying, no, this account didn't exist when this person said it did. These have been altered. Here's the originals, and you compare them, and they're not the same. At that point, you're done. And so she did a motion to withdraw, which was granted, which exactly what I said she kind of had to do. And nobody begrudged her for that. She did exactly what she was ethically had to do. I mean, you could not, as a lawyer, perpetuate a fraud on the court, which Kyle was doing, because there was forgery. Well, hang on, there's forgery, there's perjury, there's submission of altered evidence, and just to throw this in there before you go, he had, you're gonna love this, Creepy. I don't know if you even knew about this. He had DMCA'd me from the Non Sequitur Show channel, which I already had gotten back from the court as far as legally speaking, right? He didn't turn over, but the court has said you need to turn this over to him. So it was my channel legally. I was DMCA'd from my own channel 4 times. Each count we were going for a perjury count on. Because when you sign a DCMA, you're signing a legal document, right?
Yeah.
And that is actually in the court record too. So there's multiple charges of perjury possible.
Steve is probably the only person to get DMCA'd from his own channel.
I can't imagine any of that time ever happening on YouTube. Do you know of any case like that?
Wait, you got DMCA'd from your own channel?
Yes.
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 So Kyle, having not turned over the Non Sequitur show when he was obligated to via the court, so Steve legally owned Non Sequitur. Kyle used Non Sequitur because he never turned it over to strike, false DMCA strike Steve's channel.
Yes. I can't imagine that ever happening on the history of YouTube or YouTubers DMCA'd from his own channel.
Struck by his own damn channel.
I would be livid. I mean, honestly, dude, I don't mean to sound like all macho or whatever, but like, I think Kyle here deserves a kick in the balls.
Well, it's like, again, that's in the court record. In fact, the last things we even filed, we reminded the court of that.
Like, I wanted to be like, okay, so you owe this much money, you're going to jail for this many years, and 1 kick in the balls before you can get probation.
Right? There's the other thing is we also, if you're interested, we have those depositions. We have the record.
Yeah, I've seen the records. I've seen the depositions. I've seen them posted. Like, honestly, I'm pretty, the reason why we're doing this now and going over it, because like most of what we're saying here has already been like vetted by an actual court, like you cannot say that like I'm doing all this stuff. It's all just stuff that's already
court record, right?
Yeah, it's all a matter of like public record at this point and like history, and I kind of want to document that and talk about how insane it is. Honestly, I understand like why YouTube can't get involved with some of the more minute things, but it sucks that like when stuff is this blatant and it's pulled into the court system, and even the courts like give him back his channel, YouTube is sitting on the sideline like,
yep,
we can't do anything.
And let me remind people, for anybody that has a YouTube channel, this can happen to anybody, right? I mean, anybody has a YouTube channel should be concerned about these kinds of things, because these things can and do happen.
I've seen a few people have their channel hijacked in the past, and YouTube was able to help them, but in this situation, they didn't.
This situation is so particular, and like the fact that you've got somebody going to jail over a YouTube channel they claim doesn't matter to them is baffling to me.
Well, yeah, let's get to that kind of climax there, because so right now this is where we stand. we are waiting. We have now just gotten the other day, so this is kind of perfect timing. We have got a hearing scheduled for May 11th, where Kyle has to go in front of the judge, which again I don't think he's going to show because he has 4 or 5 failures to appear already. But yeah, the court has ordered for him to show cause why he hasn't turned over all the things, including I mean I have just laid it out of all the things he has to turn over. It's a ridiculous amount. It really is. But he has not done any of that, and he has to justify to the judge why he didn't. This is called a civil contempt hearing. Now, the judge has also allowed us to do a criminal contempt hearing. That has going to be adjudicated either during or afterwards, which again is only 30 days. That's the most they can do for the criminal contempt. But the criminal contempt has to do with willful interference with the court process. It has nothing to do with forgery, perjury, or submission of altered evidence or any of that. That will go to the DA, right? So we want the judge to send it to the DA. If not, we will do it ourselves. We can go to the DA directly.
Man,
But
I hate to say this, but like you might ruin this dude's life.
Well, it's the thing.
I think it's him ruining his own life at this point. Let's be real.
I mean,
here.
okay, I know, but it's just like insane that like this dude's life, like the rest of his life is going to be severely impacted by this choice.
Let me tell you this, creepy. Let me tell you this, creepy.
To spend the next X number of years in jail because he wanted ownership of a YouTube channel that he was offered 50% of the revenue on in perpetuity if he fucked off.
And let me tell you this, creepy. The judge had initially told Kyle's lawyer, tell your client that one, the longer this goes on, the worse it's going to get for him, and two, shouldn't plan on going home that night. Those were his words. Okay. In the last court order, the judge told his lawyer this to tell, and she's like, yes, he's aware of this. He knows all about this. He's aware of the ramifications.
He's probably going to run. I imagine, like,
yeah, he's not going to show up.
Oh, I'm holding out for tickets to Mexico to show up somewhere.
But hey, look, when the person
Dog the bounty hunter will be dragging him by his hair.
Here, any place he goes, we can find him. I mean, he knows we have resources, and so yeah, I don't think he's going to run, but I think he's going to blow it off like he does, every other thing. But in the last
blow it off even behind under the covers.
Yeah, that's what he used to say, that he doesn't confront things. He just literally pulls covers over his heads and kind of wishes things go away. But the last court thing said he needs to prepare himself to turn himself into the Gulfport County Sheriff's Department. He knows he's going to jail on this because there's no way he could turn it over between now and then.
There's no way they're going to even give him bail because of how many times he's
It's not bailable. It's not bailable because it is civil contempt, right? And so the way the court compels somebody to abide by the court ruling is they put you in jail until you do. Now, the most they can do is, here's the fun fact. The most they can do, I think, in North Carolina is like 90 days. However, that could be renewed, right? And then it could be up to a year, and then you have to go in front of the judge de novo and refile, which we plan to do. So in reality, he could stay on jail indefinitely until he turns everything over. And there have been people
I'm just like imagining like 30 years later, like, are you going to give me the channel? And he's going to be like, no.
Right?
I like it here now.
Yeah.
There's also nothing to say that the court can't. So there's more than just the channel that Kyle has to turn over.
Oh, there's so much more.
There's anything related, all non sequitur, all of its assets, emails, like financials, other stuff, right? So Steve can get the channel back and Kyle can still go to jail because there's more to it than just the channel. On top of that, he's going to have to, it seems to be the case, I don't know for sure, but it seems to be the case that he's going to have to fight a criminal charge and potentially criminal litigation, not just criminal contempt, but the perjury charges and gamesmanship on the court, et cetera, from prison.
Right. Yeah, and my lawyer told me the reason why they do the civil and the criminal separately is because, unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, it is actually, I do believe this to be very strongly our system. In order to have a criminal defense, he needs to have a lawyer or get one appointed to him, and that takes a significant amount of time.
Okay, so like
there will be criminality, but
in a civil case, it's easier.
Civil, yeah, the judge has told him you have 14 days to give an affidavit as to why you should be held in contempt, which I don't see him doing, but what could he possibly say? We're doing another affidavit. And then he has 5 days before the hearing to get a lawyer, which of course he's not going to do. But let's say that he did. The lawyer's going to basically tell him, turn everything over. There you go. You're out of civil contempt. I'm going on record. The way to get out of a civil contempt charge is to meet the purge condition and say, okay, here's everything turned over. He hasn't done any of that. He hasn't contacted my lawyer. And even if he started to make some progress with that, right? If he contacted my lawyer and started making some progress, the judge is going to take that into account in some degree and say, okay, what has he turned over? What he hasn't, but he hasn't even done anything.
So
I don't know if he's ever
we're gonna
contacted
play
lawyer
the rewind time because we basically have the full story out. So I'll recap it for everyone who has just got here. Steve McRae and Kyle Curtis start a YouTube channel called the Non Sequitur Podcast, the Non Sequitur Show, which is basically a podcast where they get on people who talk about basically philosophy and all that jazz and have debates with, basically anyone. It's a platform for debates. The whole community is called the Great
Discussions.
the Great Debate Community. And it generally was a well-received show. It had its fans, and it was making a decent amount of money on Patreon. Kyle decided that he was doing all the work and didn't want to work with Steve anymore. So instead of making a new channel or doing his own thing or quitting to do better ventures, he hijacks the channel, kicks Steve off of it, and refuses to pay him any of the Patreon money, any of the AdSense money, or any of the funds from anything whatsoever. And then he told all of his YouTube buddies that Steve would be paid after stealing the channel. The thing is that Steve was the one who actually created the account, and they started this as a 50-50 venture. So he didn't even buy Steve out or anything. Eventually, after Steve gets kicked off, a large YouTuber by the name of Mr. Atheist, who will now be referred to as Jimmy Snow, started promoting Kyle and appearing on the Non Sequitur podcast. Anyone who said anything about the breakup or who wanted to understand what was going on would be blocked, removed, or silenced to protect people's feelings, essentially. After giving a complete non-apology that throws Kyle under the bus, but also basically says, fuck you, Steve, Jimmy Snow no longer is in the picture, and everything is brought to the court. During the court case, Kyle proceeds to forge multiple documents, try to bill Steve for another 20 grand for suing to get his channel back, and then also refuse to comply with any of the court orders that the judge gives, or judge has given. It's gotten to the point where not only has he already defaulted on the judgment for refusing to show up to court to begin with, meaning that Steve is already owed his YouTube channel and quite a bit of money, but also he's refusing to, still show up in court or hand over any documents that the court has asked for. So not only is there this civil charge, which is basically just a business dispute, there's also now a criminal charge. And he's also going to be held in contempt of court until he's willing to hand over these documents.
And just for completeness of record, let me make it very clear. The ruling has been that the service was good. His motion to set aside the judgment, the partial summary judgment, was denied. Okay, so he's done on that.
So there's no more appeals. There's no more appeals. He might be able to appeal.
Well, hang on. In theory, he could appeal it, but the thing is this judge is no idiot. He's been on he's a senior person. He's getting ready to retire. He closed every possible loophole for him to even try to appeal. I mean, this judge knew what the hell he was doing. He crossed his T's, dotted his I's, and he gave every opportunity to Kyle to hang himself, which Kyle did. There's no possibility of appeal because there's no grounds for appeal. But in theory, if he wanted to spend $25,000 to try to appeal it, it could, but there's nothing to appeal because there's no legal reason. There's been no legal misdeeds, right? There's no there's nothing to be adjudicated on it.
We don't know how much.
It was completely proper. Yeah.
In total, we don't know how much money Kyle has stolen, but our the low estimates given by the lawyers and Steve and people who have looked into this seems to be about $60,000 plus malice.
And we're
So-
gonna get it's
Yeah.
$30,000. Excuse me, it's 30 times treble damage we've already been awarded. And I, like I said, I'm lowballing this. I think he owes me about 30 grand. But
The-
let's say
the
30 grand times
60
3 is 90,000
the
plus lawyer
60
costs, and plus we're gonna go for some other things maybe.
The 60 was the original rough estimate, which split in half, 50-50 would be Steve getting 30 and then being awarded treble damages plus whatever would put it to 90 plus whatever.
Right.
But I
So
wanna say that probably my-
this money came from, by the way, just so we are clear here, the money came from fan donations, meaning people who supported Steve's channel was donating to Steve, and Kyle just fucking took it. And then when people were having problems with that, started banning and blocking people.
On my own channel, they blocked my fans too. I mean,
Supportive,
it's funny.
yeah.
On the Non Sequitur show, the very last episode they had has like 1,000 dislikes. But the first episode they did after Kyle did what he did, everybody was in the live chat going, "What the hell is going on? Why are you doing this, Kyle? Don't do this." They recognized the fact that Kyle was doing something very unethical.
And
And
that's
they were-
why
the
he
mod-
doesn't
the mods he
stream
kept-
anymore.
The mods he kept were in
Right.
real time deleting people from the live chat. People that I've known for years, right? Huge supporters of the show, huge donors of the show. The mods at that time were deleting these people. And I'm like, holy shit, this is so morally reprehensible. I don't even know where to begin. That you take over the channel and then you kick to the curb the people that supported what we did. What the fuck is wrong with you?
There
I
are
just
people
can't
that were supporting-
imagine. I can't imagine. I haven't seen anything more blatant and shitty.
There are people, Caitlin Chloe, Godless Engineer's wife, up all the way up until this point, after all of this information has come out, after all of the fraud has come out, is still supporting Kyle, saying, "Oh well, wouldn't it be great if it wasn't for the Non Sequitur show stuff, we could be doing our other channel. What a shame." Oh really? Why is it that you're not doing that?
They were the
channel,
ones deleting
Caitlin?
people from they were the ones deleting the fans.
I
Because
just,
they dare question Kyle. What the hell are you doing?
Meanwhile,
Where's
of course,
Steve?
these people are going about doing other cancel culture in other places and other groups. They're still going about doing the same fraudulent garbage that they were doing over on Non Sequitur show. But I
And by
gotta
the
say,
way,
one of my favorite things to come out of this lawsuit was that letter that Kyle sent near the beginning, because that letter was like, "Hey, listen, I didn't commit this fraud on Steve over here because I was busy with embezzlement over here."
and by the
Oh.
way, the embezzlement.
apparently
real quick-
someone was there at, when they were banning everyone. Ash Scott
Yep.
says only
Yes,
a
we
few
love that.
mods are banning. The rest were undoing the bans as they were going
they were
out
being
until they got
removed.
demodded.
Yes, that
Yeah,
happened
that
in
happened.
real time.
Yep.
So like an
Um,
actual like fucking Captain America Civil War happened on this
Yes.
like
Yes.
live stream.
We were
That-
watching
Yeah.
this in real time.
There
Real
was
quick,
another stream that happened where people caught Kyle. So he was under litigation to not make any changes, including deleting comments to any. He wasn't allowed to make any changes to the channel. We got caught deleting comments in real time. So
thousands
people
of
were
comments.
over on so Rudd's Rhetoric, who had caught him doing this live, said, "Hey, listen, go find a Non Sequitur show video and type in Hi Reds and see if it gets deleted." We have a guy named Astronomy Live that does rocket launch videos, that does like telescope stuff, that follows the ISS, stuff like that. He wrote a program that pulls deleted comments off of a YouTube channel. So he set that program to put onto a Discord any comments that were deleted from the Non Sequitur show channel, and my god, are some of them glorious.
They're still there, by the way. And so we do have a record of that.
So once we
But
get once we get it back, we can put all of those comments back onto the
A lot of the people in your live chat right now. Matter of fact, there's a couple like Josiah Hansen and Nadine. They met on the channel and they fell in love. They're getting married or married now. And that became that was from the Non Sequitur show. I mean, to them, this was very personal to them. They met on the live chat and fell in love.
That's
And they
kind of
watched this-
cool. I'm not gonna lie, that's
I
kind of
love this.
cool.
I love that, dude.
It's not even the only couple.
I hope this marriage stays together.
It better.
I hope Kyle
well,
doesn't.
If it
I hope
doesn't,
Kyle
I'm gonna blame
doesn't break
Josiah.
it.
You know, I'm gonna
Oh,
go after
please.
him.
You want to talk
But-
about marriages and Kyle? Kyle married 2 of the co-hosts that he brought
Yes.
onto the channel that were deleting people. He married them, but he's a felon, so their marriage might not be legal.
No joke. We're not even exaggerating here.
Oh my God.
Wrap your head around that, man.
Right?
I'm telling you,
I'm-
there's just rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole, right?
So I just like kind of imagining, you know, like I hate to bring it back to Mr. Atheist, but I'm imagining
Sure,
like
go ahead.
Mr. Atheist being on that live stream while this civil war is happening.
Godless Engineer was on
Oh,
that live
probably.
stream.
Well,
And
not Mr. Atheist though.
No,
He
Mr.
might have
Atheist
been,
wasn't, but
though.
Godless Engineer was, and his wife was in real time taking away mods. Well, because she had, I guess, empowerment. I don't know how she got that much empowerment, because I thought I was the only primary owner, but I guess she went in and she was removing mods from
add
people that were restoring the fans. Right? I'm like, what?
You can go in and add that in the background. So
Yeah.
if she was giving
When,
that
I
when
mean,
I'm
it's
hoping
bizarre.
when non sequitur comes back and you get your channel one way or another, I'd be more than happy to come on and help promote and help get your
Well, we appreciate that, man.
because
that'd be amazing.
You know, and let me say, I'm 50-50 on getting the channel back, only because, and I hate to say this, I think Kai would rather die in prison than do what is right.
I think that
Even
if that's the case, we're gonna get the channel back anyway because the court still has the power.
we can go to
to
YouTube. Yeah, we can go to YouTube and probably do it
yeah.
that way. If the
And
court
you can
order
still
is directly
say
to
it, and
YouTube.
the answer is that you can have the best of both worlds, Steve. Plan for
Get the channel
success,
back and have
man.
him in prison. Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean,
but here's
I'm
the thing.
hoping
The ball is in his court. He could literally get out of, at least getting out of the jail. He's probably going to go to prison for the perjury and the forgery, because that's all going to be through the DA.
yeah, and I'm
But
assuming that's
he-
definitely going to be at least a few years. But at least the DA will have to spend at least a good few years like putting together that case.
I don't think so. I
Right.
mean, the court record is all there. Look, here's the thing. Perjury is almost notorious, one of the most notorious things to try to convict on. However, this is an open and shut case because we have it in the documentation. We have it in the deposition, and we have the actual. We've already. Asked
It's
for the
already a
originals.
matter of fact
It's
in
already
the
a
eyes
matter
of the
of
court.
fact. Yeah, it's on a matter of record. If anything, it'd be like, hey, we're going to charge you with this. Here's your plea deal. Take it or leave it. Is what I think that they normally would do, because it's open and shut. There's nothing really. It's beyond a preponderance of the evidence in the
And
court record
if
that
you
he
ever-
lied.
And if you ever need help with graphic stuff, you know, feel free to hit me up, and I'll do it without trying to
I'm
steal the
stealing your
channel.
grab. I'm taking freedom, man. I'm
She's pretty
telling
good.
you, I love this. I love this thumbnail so much.
It's amazing. By the way, guys,
Can-
if you just so I can throw more love at Frida, if you guys like who's listening right now, if you have a Twitter, if you would mind like going into the description, going on Twitter and giving Frida a follow, you know, or like just sending her a tweet letting her know that you appreciate the work she did. Again, she did this last night at 5 a.m.
So good.
because I forgot to get a thumbnail done, and she honestly came in so clutch for this. So, like, honestly, I wish I could like just spread that love back. So if you guys like the art and might be interested in more, maybe consider like going over and giving a follow. She's absolutely amazing. Again, you could find her linked in the description, and also like I could potentially like throw a quick link into the chat. here.
Can I address something in the
I
live
can
chat?
drop the link in the chat. I've got it.
Yeah, feel
Can I
free.
address something in the live chat? All right. So by the way, I really do hope everybody watches the Death of Non Sequitur show. Go check it out. Leave comments on it, by the way. Let me know what you think. And of course, hopefully subscribe to the channel as well. And there's other videos dealing with this particular topic. But somebody had asked, and I don't know if they're trolling or not, and I don't care. It's a legit question. They said, so hang on. There is no cash. Can't be collected. A dead channel, and this idiot is going to jail, and 50,000 in legal fees, and this is a win. Yes. Let me tell you why. I made a promise to the fans that we were going to see this through once my friend decided to fund it, right? And I promised then I'm going to follow through with this. I want to see justice done, and if that justice is retributive in nature, and Kyle goes to jail or prison on it, I will consider that a win. Now, yes, is the channel dead? Absolutely, and it is dead because of the fact that an unscrupulous person, several. I mean, there must have been I don't know, several hundred people removed, and thousands of people unsubscribed. Now, could we get that back? I don't know. Right. The money can be collected. It is good for up to 10 years. It can be renewed. And even though North Carolina does not have a garnishment there are other ways to collect. I mean, as long as he's earning an income, we can collect. We will have all the financial records we need. If he doesn't provide them, he goes to jail. So it's one of those things where,
okay,
do I consider it a win? Yes, I really honestly do, in the fact that I want to see justice done to show that people should not do this to other people.
Honestly, I'm in favor of, like, I know that the channel is like kind of dead. Honestly, you can revive a dead channel. I've one time just stopped uploading for like 6 months and then uploaded a video and bam, a couple 100,000 views. So, there's that. Like, no channel's truly dead until you fucking kill it. Two, fuck this guy for like doing this. This isn't like it's a win because
you notice they don't care about that fact. They don't care about the fact that what he did was so unethical and how he lied to the court. He lied to the fans. He tried to smear me, tried to say that I committed fraud, that I did this other stuff, when it's all him.
Like, all you need to say is he got, right? Like, there's a bit of catharsis too, knowing that this dude who hijacked this channel, who stole all this money, is going to prison. Failing getting the money, okay, prison's the next best option. So it's a little bit of a win.
There's also the idea that this hasn't been brought this kind of case has not been brought before litigation before, and Kyle face planting so hard at every turn of this situation makes it easier for other YouTubers in the future who end up suffering from something like this to get their litigation done faster and at a better rate and with more consistency, because this is the first time this has happened. It's principle.
Yeah, and you don't go out to starting a new channel. I mean, here's the thing: it's not even about the channel; it's about the justice and the story and the money and him screwing over people. I mean. That's what it's about. And if somebody can't understand
Steve gets his money, that'll be good.
That's on them. Yeah,
if Steve gets his money, that's good. If people recognize that Steve should have the money, that's also good. Another thing to consider is that people have been coming at this situation and just saying Steve isn't owed anything, that he's just this kind of shitty person who doesn't deserve anything. And here we have the US court saying, hey, this guy is this guy was wronged, and I would love for that to be the case, because here's the thing, I'm not sure if this would be a landmark case or anything, but this is one of the first times where I've heard of a YouTube channel being hijacked and a court awarding the channel back to the original owner, and I think that sets a precedent or something. I don't know. It feels karmatically balanced,
this is the first time that somebody has actively, that I know. As a matter of fact, my lawyer's never seen anything like this, and I don't think the judge has either. But this is the first time that a litigant in a court thing, especially over YouTube, has actively submitted so much fraudulent evidence. Right? I mean, that's unprecedented in the North Carolina Business Court. And it's certainly, I've never seen it happen in YouTube. If anybody knows a case in YouTube where somebody, yes, there's been lawsuits, but has anybody literally got out of the way to fabricate evidence and submit it to the court? If there is, I'm unaware of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're hoping that I'm hoping that, Steve gets some money, but failing that, I mean, Kyle is definitely going to prison, if not for what he's done to Steve, for the multiple things listen, just don't piss off the court. If you go to court, swallow the bullet, give them exactly what they want, appear humble, and you'll get the best possible outcome. Do not try to fuck with the judge. Do not tell the judge what you're going to do. You do what the judge tells you got to do. Because let me tell you, I'm not
straight fraud on the court. He takes this personally, I'm sure. Because I mean, any judge would. That is hey, dude, you're trying to lie to the court here. Oh no, this ain't happening.
To the judge, your drama is his job, and you're making him work. Don't make him work. Let him go home. Let him watch, I don't know, an Adam Sandler movie instead of having to deal with your bullshit.
Yeah, and it's so funny because the money that was donated to the channel was under the idea that it's supposed to be 50-50, right? I mean, so when we say that they're stole from the fans, yes, the fans wanted to go 50-50. That was the intent of why they gave the money to the channel. They're supporting the channel because they like the channel, because why? We had a good show, right? So it was stealing money from the fans, and the fans do not have a short-term memory on this. They have a very long-term memory. They know these things, right? Many of them are supporting my channel now, and in your live chat, they remember these things, and they know what that felt like to be betrayed by somebody who they, thought was an honest person, because Kyle portrayed himself to be. He portrayed himself to be, a voice of skepticism and reason, even though, I disagreed with him a lot on his philosophy, but he was propped up as, a person to look up to, an influencer, right? He was well on his way to become a very substantial influencer, I think. Much more than me, even, because I'm what's called a micro influencer. I got some pull, but I mean, he could have been a lot bigger, I think, because he was charismatic. He had a comedic tone to him. He was funny. He had, ability to do arts and stuff like that. And he probably could have been very, very successful had he just started a new channel and did his side products that way. But
he had everything that was offered to him, and the only person who messed it up for him was himself.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think what the fans are owed is justice. And that's what I talked to all of them.
There's a few things going on in the chat, and I think I'll let this be the last thing we talk about, because we've been going for like almost 2 hours and a half. Steve is owed, the fans are owed, blah 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 blah. I'm sorry, but if I gave like $80 to a live streamer, like let's say Ots Darva, my favorite Dead by Daylight streamer, and then it turned out his like brother took the money that I gave to him and then fucked off with it and then also killed his live stream, I would feel robbed. If I gave money to someone and then someone else stole that money and then also stopped the person I was donating to from doing the thing that they were doing, I'd feel robbed. So yeah, no, the fans kind of got robbed here, because the thing that they were donating to wasn't the thing that they were donating to.
Exactly.
The
And Steve
scam,
couldn't like fix that because he got kicked off his own channel.
Yeah, and by the way, Kyle did spend a lot of money on trips. He spent money on equipment. There was equipment bought for the show that wasn't accounted for. There was an Amazon wish list, things that weren't accounted for. There was software. There was a $1,200 vMix software that wasn't accounted for that he was supposed to turn over. Yeah, we had $1,200. Yeah, again, real quick. There's a lot of in-depth things to this, right? And this is just the surface stuff, because when people dive into this, they recognize that, hey, again, like you said, if a fan donated money expecting it to be, evenly distributed, and Kyle takes everything and spends it himself for whatever he does, that's misappropriation of funds. That is what in the civil term is called fraudulent conversion. In the criminal world is called embezzlement, which, by the way, isn't off the table, I don't think.
No, it's not.
It's a Class H
you
felony.
can always tell that you've stumbled upon something contentious, and you can always tell that you've stumbled on something that people are interested in when you have the amount of gaslighting and the amount of poisoning the well that you have with this kind of a situation. The amount of like visceral behavior towards people who only donated money, and the number of people that are telling these people how they ought to feel about something and trying to gaslight them into saying that, oh, no, you should think this, or no, you should feel this way about how you spent your money, or the amount of victim blaming that goes on, and like, well, Steve's really at fault because
I'm very confused. I'm very confused by Thomas Anderson made a post here. He's like, so the fans need to start a class action lawsuit against him that feel wronged. And I'm like, yeah, you could do that. You could do that, but I don't know. I feel like that's like, he's already going to prison. He's already the money's already going. The guy like, for example, like let's go back to the Ots Darva example. Love Ots Darva, best Dead by Daylight streamer ever. Should go follow him. Either way, I give Ots Darva $80. His brother steals the $80 and also shuts down to Twitch. Ots Darva sues him and is in the process of getting to Twitch back and the $80. Why on top of that would I feel the need to also start a class action? The money that I was trying to give to Ots is already going back to him.
And creepy. Here's another gaslighting, which I think is hilarious. This is legal record. It has already been established. We had a partnership. It is under the North Carolina business.
It would be like if I was tipping a waitress.
We went to the Superior Court Justice to have it filed under a partnership.
And so for anybody who says there's no partnership, they're by fiat incorrect, because the legal record shows otherwise. It was established
The
as a
legal
partnership. Matter of fact, in the
thing
death
that
of non sequitur,
Kyle
hang on,
submitted to the
hang on,
court
hang on, hang
as
on.
legal record said it was a partnership.
Yeah, in non sequitur,
Kyle
he admits
admitted
to a
this.
partnership, and in the letter he gave to the judge, he admits to a partnership. This is the amount of gaslighting we see from these sycophants that, for some reason, want to support Kyle to basically try to fight against me.
I don't get
It's
it. I don't.
gaslighting. It's
It don't.
ridiculous. It's so you can go look at the court record how wrong they are. You know, how do you gaslight somebody to the extreme to convince them that objective reality isn't objective reality here? You know, but they try. They literally try. It's weird.
It's to me
It's almost a Kyle kind of
the way that I'd probably use it better, like out of the YouTube thing, it would be like when I say when Steve says like fans that were wronged because their money was stolen, right? It would be the equivalent of you tipping your waitress and then the owner stealing the
Yes.
money.
Yes, thank you.
That
that's a
I
perfect
would say
analogy.
I would
That's a
say
great
I would
analogy,
say that
yeah.
the money was stolen and that I feel robbed because I would not have given my money if I had known the owner was just going to steal all of it. Especially since that's not what was told to everyone, including the waitress.
And then they blame the victim. They blame
And
the
then
waitress.
they blame
It's
the
waitress' fault.
waitress. Yeah, that is the waitress's
Steve's
fault, you
It's
know.
Steve's fault because he wanted an accounting of the
And
record.
all
It's
the
Steve's
people
fault,
who
you
and
know?
all the
Okay.
people who went to the restaurant should file a class action lawsuit to
Yeah.
get their tips
Well,
back because
It
that's
boggles
that's
my
what this
mind,
is
yeah.
about, you know.
That's
It's
how
totally-
any of that would work. Yes, of course. It's the internet lawyers, right? It's only a matter of time before the internet lawyers show up, right?
Yeah, and that's another thing. Every internet lawyer out there that was saying Kyle was improperly served, guess what? They were wrong.
yeah,
I
and
mean, objectively, I mean, we knew legally that he was served correctly.
And I feel like it's so weird that like the people who like are forming these arguments, because I don't mind arguing, I don't mind like responding to that, because like honestly, people are allowed to be skeptical, people are allowed to have different viewpoints,
Sure.
and it's good to have that discussion. But like, why are we posting the why are we being super cynical in the comments, like or big LOL, this is bullshit? Like, I don't. Why are you putting
Because
LOL?
they're not the ones. They're not the ones that had it happen to
Like
them,
we're
right?
having like there's a serious discussion, and it's I don't know. It's just it feels like the people that are kind of arguing in bad faith, and
And
Oh,
the worst
yeah.
part is I love my fans, and I love the fans of the show, and I love the people that subscribe to my channel, and I'm very close with all of them. I mean, I'm not the kind of person to just does a stream and never talk to these people. I mean, I'm talking to them daily, all the time. People message me, and we have conversations. These are people that I care about very much. And so, I do take it personally, and I do take what Kyle did personally. And I understand that other people may not have that attachment, right? I get that. But I'm also very objective, and the objective record is what it is. You don't need to subjectively evaluate that.
Yeah, if anybody is curious about the actual litigation, I have been doing a read through of just just the paperwork, and I'll be doing part 5 on Tuesday, and I'm on 24. Or 7. There are 57, not including like the Exhibit A and Exhibit B that are crunched into one number.
Oh, the exhibits are amazing,
Oh
though.
God, there's so
My
many.
lawyer's really good. Yeah, a lot of people are like, "Oh, Steve's lawyer's so bad. He should have had him served properly." Like, no, this dude is tight, man. He knows what he's doing. And yeah, I mean, the judge ruled against Kyle on all aspects and said, "No, this was served properly." And then he's like, there's evidence to the courts that Kyle has done some bad things. I don't know what exact terminology you use, but he's like, you want to file for criminal contempt, and we're like, yes. So we filed for civil, we filed for criminal contempt. Civil is first, and we'll let you know on May 11th whether he shows. My money is that he doesn't, because if he does, he will be arrested, and if he doesn't, there'll be an arrest warrant out for him. Either way, there's going to be an arrest warrant. Now, will he find him if he doesn't show? Yes, I'm going to make sure that we find him. I mean, you can't really avoid the sheriff's department for that long. I mean, he has a job, and we know where he lives, and I mean, come on. I mean, this is my prediction. They're going to get arrested in court, at work, at home, one of those three things probably is more likely the case, I would imagine, right? It's up to him which he decides to be. Is that fair?
Yeah. Damn. I see what you mean. I definitely see what you mean here.
Oh, the gaslighting is unreal with some of these people, because these are some of the people that again have the ones that funded Kyle's lawsuit, right? These are the kind of people that wanted Kyle to get a lawyer to try to screw me over, to try to prolong this case much longer than it should have been. This has been over a year ago, but of course, because of the world things, I don't want to say the word because YouTube hates that word, but the big C. Because of that, things were unable to progress in the way that it normally would have, because he would have been in front of the judge a year ago. But they weren't having people in coming to the court, so we all had to run virtually. But this judge did not want him virtual. This judge wanted him in his courtroom, and he, as I said, told his lawyer he's not going home that night. He is going to have him arrested. It's not a matter of if; it's a matter of when. And of course, Kyle can decide when he wants to do that: either go to the court, or make it much worse and have the sheriffs come to his house. And I'm going to say this right on fact. If he does, I hope to God he has resisting arrest.
Right. I mean, I just hope
anyway,
the body on so we can watch the footage.
Anyway, like I said, this video, a lot of people weren't here when I said this, but like I said, this video is ultimately a stream that's basically just a research stream for the worst YouTuber list. And Kyle is one of the worst YouTubers. That's what it takes to be one of the worst. You have to be.
You're getting arrested for over a YouTube.
You have to imagine being arrested for being the shittiest YouTuber, like fucking Kyle has.
That's where we're at, right?
And I'm hoping you've got enough notes together. If not,
yeah, I feel like I got enough, but I feel like this is a good thing
for one of the worst YouTubers of all time, because I don't know how much more you can screw over. I don't know how much you can screw over yourself.
I mean you could be a pedophile, so there's a few of those.
I won't even tell you some of the things he said about my underage daughter, but that's a whole different thing.
Oh God!
I'm telling you, there's one thing after another with this. It's bullshit.
It's been a long time. Anyway, I appreciate everyone who's came to the stream. If I will have this stream, I keep all my streams archived on Unlisted in a playlist called That Creepy Cast. If you're interested in watching the other streams where me and my other people have talked, feel free to go into that playlist. Otherwise, this will be going down the dark memory hole of YouTube. Have a good one, gamers. And if you guys want to give out your Twitter handles and all that jazz and have this properly end, we can do that now.
Our Twitters are in the description.
Yes, they are.
I do art, and if you have questions for us, we have a call-in show, so you can actually just call and ask us directly if you're curious about any of this. And if you do want any more information about most of what's going on and what we do, just go find us on our channels.
Yeah, Twitter's the best way to reach me too. It's in the video description. Follow. We are doing a show, like I said, every Monday, 11 o'clock, called Judgment Call, where you call in to, get our opinion on things. But my thing is go watch the Death and Non-Sequitur show and other videos related if you want more information on this. It's so worth. And Cheshire's. Yeah, the Goblin Reads.
3 hours breaking down the Death of the Non Sequitur show, and I definitely recommend if you do watch it sped up. I specifically took my time for 3 hours, so I wouldn't be listening to it sped up, so that way people could listen to it sped up in the future instead of having to switch back and forth.
All right. And with that said,
I'm
your host. Oh, of course. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. So with that said, I'm your host at Creepy Reading. This has been Steve McRae and Cheshire Goblin Queen, or Cheshire. I'm going to call her Gobbo. And with that, I'm going to end the stream. No more words for you. No, end! Okay, there we go.